Chapter 2058. 2058 killed him casually. Die. Alright, I'll grant your wish. A calm voice came out from Wuxia's mouth. He stared at young Master Yun with a calm gaze. At the same time, he moved his thumb slightly. Clang! The dragon blood sword in his hand emitted a metallic sound. A terrifying aura emanated from the sword. He wants to make a move. Kill him. At this moment, when the three gods beside young Master Yun saw Wuxia's move, they were shocked. Their expressions changed drastically. The young man in front of them actually dared to make a move against them, and the direct disciples of Eternal Shocking Thunder. Was he challenging the prestige of Eternal Shocking Thunder? Did he not want to live anymore? Damn you guys, you are courting death. When young Master Yun saw that Wuxia dared to draw his sword, his expression changed slightly. However, he did not show any fear as he roared. Roar! Roar! At this moment, a dragon's roar sounded from the dragon blood sword. The dragon blood sword was completely drawn. Boom! He waved his arm, and the dragon blood sword attacked the group of people directly. Roar! Roar! Another dragon's roar sounded. A seven-colored divine dragon attacked them directly. Defend! The rest of you attack and kill them. The two divine flames stared at the seven-colored divine dragon and immediately roared. Kill! Behind them, the faces of the 2,000 to 3,000 people revealed a cold killing intent as they roared loudly. Pung! However, when the seven-colored divine dragon landed on the bodies of the two divine flames, the body of the god completely descended. The chaotic seven-colored divine dragon directly passed through his body and destroyed his body. Not good. The other two gods who had followed closely behind the old man sensed that the old man's life force had instantly disappeared, and their faces revealed expressions of fear. It was already too late for them to dodge. Pung! The seven-colored divine dragon easily passed through their bodies, causing them to open their eyes wide, filled with a deathly gray color. Not good, Lord Feng and the others. The faces of the more than 2,000 people behind them revealed a terrified expression. When they saw the three gods who had lost their vitality in an instant, their faces were filled with shock. Oh no! At this moment, young Master Yun also realized that they had provoked Vicious. His face revealed a terrified expression, and he hurriedly wanted to escape to the back. Roar! Roar! However, a roar was even faster as it attacked them. Ah! In an instant a miserable scream sounded. You dare, you dare! I am a direct disciple of Eternal Shocking Thunder. If you dare to kill me, we Eternal Shocking Thunder will not let you off. A fierce shout came from young Master Yun's mouth. At this moment, a purple bolt of lightning burst out from his chest. The thunderbolt completely protected him inside, and a black hole slowly appeared in the sky above him. The thunderbolt wanted to escape with him. What happened on the other side? On the other side, a group of Eternal God Yi Feng's disciples looked over, and their faces showed astonishment. Buzz, buzz, buzz! At this moment, three mournful sounds of heaven and earth rang out, making them slightly shocked. Those guys from Eternal Thunderclap have provoked a ruthless person. Haha, those three gods have been killed. A god's eyes lit up as he looked towards the opposite side. His face revealed a look of schadenfreude. Those three people are not from Eternal Thunderclap. How dare they kill the disciples of Eternal Thunderclap now? The people from Eternal Divine Leaf were slightly shocked as they looked over excitedly. You want to escape? Wuxia saw the power of lightning on young Master Yun's body. A hint of surprise and coldness flashed in his eyes. He waved the dragon blood sword in his hand once again. A wave of destructive power landed directly on young Master Yun's body. Crack! Crack! The lightning started to flicker, and the black hole slowly dissipated. When young Master Yun saw this scene, a look of astonishment appeared on his face. No, how is this possible? How is this possible? The lightning protection power on his body could withstand the attacks from the 8 wisps of divine flames and below. Now the young man had actually broken it. Death enveloped him, causing him to reveal a look of panic as he shouted loudly. Ka 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 ka. Don't kill me, don't kill me. The lightning started to crack, and young Master Yun pleaded for mercy loudly, with a face full of panic. Wang Xian watched this scene with an expressionless face. A guy who hasn't even ignited the divine fire dares to provoke an unknown god so arrogantly. Does he really think that he can act recklessly just by relying on the name of eternal thunderclap? He said faintly. Wang Xian had a hint of disdain towards this kind of disciple with a deep background. A background was a background, and one's own strength was one's own strength. One didn't know when one would meet someone who wasn't afraid of one's background, and would kill one without any scruples. Wang Xian naturally wouldn't be used to such an arrogant disciple. He didn't care about one's background. No! A despairing and fearful voice rang out. The sharp sword pierced through his body and pierced through it. He widened his eyes. His pupils were filled with regret. He was the direct disciple of eternal shocking thunder. In the future, he would definitely ignite the divine fire, and have a lifespan of 100,000 years. He didn't want to die. Buzz! Wang Xian swept his gaze over. With a wave of his arm, all the corpses were stored in the mother nest. Hiss! Damn, those three are ruthless. They actually killed the direct disciples of eternal shocking thunder. Awesome! On the opposite side, the people from Eternal Godly Leaf heard the screams from the other side. All of them had shocked expressions on their faces. Few people dared to kill Eternal Thunder's direct disciples. Moreover, if they could kill Eternal Thunder's direct disciples, they would receive a huge reward. However, these direct disciples were not so easy to kill. Every disciple had a life-saving method, so it was very difficult to kill them. They dared to kill Eternal Thunder's direct disciples, so they are definitely not from the North region. Could they be from Eternal Leaf? It's very possible. The enemy of the enemy is a friend. Why don't we get to know them? The three of them aren't weak at all. The group discussed among themselves. In the end, their gazes landed on the two young men and women. The strength of the two young men and women had already reached the peak of the demigod realm. They wore green clothes and had a leaf on their chests. The two of them were the outstanding prodigies of Eternal Divine Leaf's generation. Although they were only at the peak of the demigod realm, with the divine weapons in their hands and the treasures on them, their combat power was no weaker than that of a god with a wisp of divine fire. Let's get to know each other. Maybe they are friends of our eastern region. The woman hesitated for a moment, then looked at the young man beside her and said, "Okay." The young man also nodded. "My friend in front, I'm Li Mayan, the Eternal Leaf God. I would like to make friends with the three of you." Li Mayan took a few steps forward, and her voice traveled across the void. "The Eternal Leaf God." Wang Xian heard the voice coming from the other side. He hesitated for a moment before flying over immediately. Chapter 2059. 2059 Heaven and Earth Treasure. They are here. No hostility, don't worry. Li Mayan and the rest smiled when they saw Wang Xian, and the rest flying over. After leaping over the dangerous tide, Wang Xian arrived at a spot about 100 meters in front of Li Mayan and the rest. "Hello, the three of you. May I know if you are the experts from our eastern region?" Li Mayan and the rest looked Wang Xian, and the rest up and down and asked curiously. "No, we want to go to the Eternal Leaf. The teleportation formation has been shut down, so we could only fly over. We happened to pass by and met those reckless fellows." Wang Xian glanced at them and said with a smile, "Oh, do you have any friends from the Eternal Leaf?" An old man asked Wang Xian and the rest. "Yes, I have friends there." Wang Xian did not hide anything and nodded his head. His gaze landed on the young man and woman with leaves on their green clothes. "Are you the disciples of Eternal Leaf?" he asked. "You don't know our senior sister Li Mayan and senior brother Li Mulong? They are." "That's right. We are the disciples of the Eternal Divine Leaves. We can be considered as core disciples." As soon as Wang Xian finished his sentence, a young man opened his mouth immediately. However, he was interrupted by Li Mulong as soon as he finished his sentence. "We thought you guys were here to look for opportunities in the energy tide. Where are the three of you planning to go?" Li Mulong continued to ask. To the center of the eternal divine leaves. Wang Xian replied directly. To the center of the eternal divine leaves? Are the three of you friends at the eternal kingdom? The three of you have helped us by killing the eternal thunderclap disciples. There is a formation that can teleport us upstream and allow us to enter the eternal kingdom quickly. Why don't the three of you follow us upstream? Li Mayan said to Wang Xian. Sure, thank you very much. Wang Xian cupped his hands and said with a smile. No need. The enemy of the enemy is a friend. Speaking of which, the three of you are really courageous. If Eternal Thunderclap finds out that you have killed the direct descendants of Eternal Thunderclap, they will definitely be attacked. Li Mulong reminded Wang Xian. Hehe, I don't care about Eternal Thunderclap. In this vast void, if they still want to find trouble with us, even if they don't have the strength, we will naturally kill them directly. Wang Xian smiled and said nonchalantly. In this vast void, who would know if they were killed? As for the people from Eternal Divine Leaf, they had nothing to do with it. Both parties were enemies to begin with, so it didn't affect him at all. This friend's attitude is really good. He doesn't look very old. To be able to become a god at such an age, he's really extraordinary. Li Mulong looked at him in a different light. We've got the treasure. Let's go. The three of you just follow us. Li Mayan said to them and flew forward along the tide. According to them, that was the upstream of the tide, and the location where the tide was near the black hole. Wang Xian didn't have any worries following them. As long as he entered the territory of the Eternal Divine Leaves, he had nothing to be afraid of. With two little girls around, who would dare to provoke him? Perhaps even the god of divine leaves would call him brother when he saw him. Right now, Wang Xian felt like he was relying on his daughter's influence. However, this feeling was pretty good too. The group flew forward and crossed half of the black hole, in the northern region of the eastern region. The length of the black hole was extremely terrifying. We will reach the upstream area in front of us. There is a base of our eternal divine leaves there. The three of you can teleport there. 5 hours later, an enormous continent appeared at the side of the energy tide. That's right, it was a continent with many buildings on it. In front of the continent, there were hundreds of millions of people, all at the demigod level. They were in front of the energy tide. Some were cultivating around, while others were staring at the energy tide. When they reached the upper reaches, the surrounding spiritual energy was about 10 times that of the outside world. It was a good place for many people to cultivate. Li Mayan pointed to the front and said to Wang Xian and the rest, do all of these belong to the disciples of the Eternal Divine Leaf? Wang Xian looked at the hundreds of millions of people. Among them, there was no lack of godly state experts. He asked in slight astonishment. 50% of them are the disciples of our Eternal Divine Leaves. The rest are the forces that are attached to our Eternal Divine Leaves, or the forces of our eastern region. Our eastern region is still relatively united. Everything is based on our Eternal Divine Leaves. Of course, we treat them much better than Eternal Thunderclap treats the powerhouses of the northern region. Li Mulong introduced them to Wang Xian. Are the three of you interested in joining our Eternal Divine Leaves? Joining us will bring you great benefits. Li Mayan said with a smile. No. Wang Xian shook his head. Li Mayan and the rest didn't force them. As the heavens' favorites of the Eternal Divine Leaves, they might not have bothered with them if it wasn't for the fact that Wang Xian and the rest were quite powerful. Hello, Senior Sister Li. Senior Brother Li, have you obtained the divine weapon? Voices of respect could be heard near the upper reaches of the continent. Clearly, Li Mayan and Li Mulong had some status in the entire Eternal Divine Leaf. Divine weapon. Wang Xian's eyes flickered slightly when he heard their conversation. Look, there's a powerful divine glow flickering in the middle of the tide. It must be an ultimate treasure of the divine realm. It must be. The spiritual treasure has transformed. There are even ferocious beasts of the tidal wave guarding the surroundings. This is definitely an extremely powerful ultimate treasure of the heaven and earth. Just as they were about to enter the mainland, a series of exclamations were suddenly heard. Li Mayan and Li Mulong were slightly taken aback. They immediately looked towards the direction of the tidal wave. Wang Xian also raised his eyebrows and turned his head to look. That is, when his gaze swept across the area, a look of astonishment appeared in his eyes. At the center of the energy tide, a ball of white light was exceptionally eye-catching. In the sky above the white light, an illusion of 1,000 meters in size condensed. The illusion looked like a pair of wings. The white light flowed along the energy tide. The speed of the flow was not very fast. Moreover, there were tide beasts with huge wings around the white light. They were all around the holy white light. What level of treasure is that? It can cause such a huge phenomenon, and even cause the protection of the energy beasts? Li Mulong and the rest were shocked. They were filled with shock. Squeak, squeak, squeak. At this moment Wang Xian, who was at the side, sensed the excited cries of the treasure-hunting mouse in the mother nest. He moved his palm, and the palm-sized treasure-hunting mouse appeared in his palm. His 6 tentacles were aimed at the spot where the white light was. This is an ultimate treasure of heaven and earth. Its level exceeds the detection range. Chapter 2060. 2060 was in his hands. This is a treasure of heaven and earth. Its level has exceeded the detection range. When Wang Xian sensed the information from the treasure-seeking ant, he was stunned. Its level has exceeded the detection range. How is this possible? You must know that this treasure-seeking ant is a divine beast of the bug race. There are very few treasures that it cannot detect. Wang Xian opened his mouth slightly and revealed a shocked expression. The treasure-seeking ant divine beast of the bug race was the strongest race in the universe back then. It was an existence that was comparable to the divine dragon race. Beyond the detection range. In other words, Wang Xian's eyes sparkled. It was beyond the detection range of the treasure-seeking ant. In other words, this treasure was definitely a treasure of heaven and earth. The energy tide this time is the largest in the past 100,000 years. Without the strength of 6 to 7 wisps of divine fire, it is impossible to enter the center. However, there are many treasures in the energy tide this time. I don't know what kind of treasures are inside the white light. There are even tidal beasts guarding it. Li Mulong's shocked voice rang out from the front. They ignored Wang Xian and flew directly to the edge of the energy tide. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, on the void continent behind them, numerous figures were also flying towards the edge of the energy tide. Let's go and take a look, Wang Xian said to Ming Hua and Yang Hua, and followed closely behind them. This place was tens of kilometers away from the energy tide. These tens of kilometers were just an instant problem for him. Rumble. When Wang Xian was close enough, the rumbling sound and the vastness of the energy tide assaulted him. Wang Xian stared at the energy tide in astonishment. This was the wonder of the universe. Make your move and seize this treasure. We can't let those guys from the eternal thunderclap get their hands on it. At this moment, dignified voices rang out from the sky. More than 10 figures flew into the energy tide, each of them possessing the strength of no less than 6 wisps of divine fire. Their figures moved and flew into the sky above the energy tide, directly grabbing towards the ball of white light in the middle. So. Ha 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 ha, this treasure belongs to our eternal shocking thunder. From the opposite side, a similar unbridled voice rang out. A huge metal claw was clawing towards the white light. Divine weapon, heaven-probing claw. This divine weapon has grabbed many divine weapons from the energy tide. Oh no, they have used the heaven-probing claw. Around Wang Xian, the people around him cried out in surprise when they saw the huge claw that was emitting divine light clawing towards the white light. Block the heaven-probing claw. The faces of the eternal thunderclap experts stiffened when they saw the metal claw. The old man in the middle immediately roared. Boom, boom, boom. Numerous attacks were launched towards the metal claw in the energy tide. Buzz. However, they were already prepared at the opposite position. Streams of energy blocked their attacks. Enter the energy tide. When the eternal leaf experts saw this, their expressions changed, and they jumped into the energy tide. Roar! Roar! Within the energy tide, The metallic sky-piercing claw emitted a divine light, and the 10-meter-long claw rapidly expanded, enveloping the white light. However, at this moment, the energy beasts around the white light let out roars. Their enormous wings flapped the tides in front of them. The tides around them seemed to be under control, as they directly attacked the sky-reaching claw. In an instant, the tides around the white light seemed to be 10 times more ferocious, as waves of terrifying energy washed towards the sky-reaching claw. Ao. Mournful sounds rang out from the sky-reaching claw, as a claw actually slowly cracked under the impact of the energy. Not good, those tide beasts are very terrifying. The eternal leaf gods, who had already charged into the energy tide, were shocked when they saw this scene. The sky-reaching claw was able to directly charge into the energy tide, and it was already a divine weapon of the 7th level of the deity realm. However, such a divine weapon was actually shattered by the impact of the energy tide. It could be imagined that the energy of the tide could already threaten peak-stage deity realm experts. Among them, there was no peak-stage deity realm expert. Oh no! On the opposite side, the eternal leaf gods' expressions changed drastically as they hurriedly withdrew their heaven-probing claws. The area covered by the white light continued to flow along the energy tide. The eternal thunder and eternal leaf gods stopped. They floated in the air with solemn expressions. What a terrifying tidal beast. This is only the attack of one tidal beast. There are at least a dozen tidal beasts gathered there. They can control the tides and use the power of the tides to threaten peak god-level experts. Some gods were shocked when they saw the divine weapon, the heaven-probing claw, fall. Such a terrifying tidal beast is guarding the white light. What level is the treasure in the white light? It should be at least at the peak of the godly realm, right? Many people around were staring at the white light with burning eyes. In the sky above the energy tide, the gods of the 2 major factions were staring at the white light in the tide with furrowed brows. An elder from Eternal Shocking Thunder looked at the heaven-probing claw in his hand with an ugly expression. What a powerful energy tide and tide demonic beasts. This won't do. I can't do anything even if I enter by myself. When Wang Xian saw this scene, a solemn expression appeared on his face. The hundreds of millions of people around him looked at the white light, flowing along the tide in astonishment. Although the speed of the white light was not very fast, it was still tens of thousands of meters per second. In the sky, the gods of the 2 major forces were following in the sky. They were not in a hurry or taking any risks. This was because the energy tide had an end. As long as they reached the end of the energy tide, they would be able to deal with the energy beasts inside. At that time, they would naturally be able to obtain treasures. Walala! All of a sudden at this moment, a sound that sounded like a huge wave was heard. The energy tide has changed. It is no longer pure spiritual energy. Instead, it is a tide formed by water elemental energy, the ocean tide. Before Wang Xian could turn his head to take a look, exclamations could be heard from the surroundings. Oh no, the white light has stopped. It's actually going against the current. It wants to return to the black hole of the tide. It actually wants to return to the black hole of the tide. More voices could be heard. Everyone quickly looked over. They saw that the white light that was originally following the energy tide was actually going against the current. This was an extremely rare occurrence. Once the white light went against the current and entered the tidal black hole, it would completely disappear. Divine artifacts possess spirituality, but very few could go against the current and tide. Ocean tide against the current. At the edge, Wang Xian saw the white light that was going against the current and gradually entering the ocean tide. His eyes sparkled and he was tempted. Should I give it a try? Chapter 2061. 2061 made his move. The tides of the universe were ever-changing. 1 second, the tide of spiritual energy was flowing out of the black hole. And the next second, it was the tide of flames. Next it would be the tide of the lust, the tide of the ocean, and so on. No one knew how long the tide of spiritual energy would last, or how long the tide of flames would last. It could be thousands of years, or even days. The energy tide in front of them had changed from the spiritual energy tide just now to the ocean tide. The ocean tide, formed by water energy, was a huge opportunity for the water element cultivators. The water element cultivators could enter the ocean to cultivate. Even the gods had great benefits. The divine dragon clan was the lord of the ocean. Regardless of which element the divine dragon belonged to, their strength would not be affected in the slightest when they entered the ocean. In fact, their speed would even be slightly faster. This was due to the bloodline of the divine dragons. Water affinity, water affinity. The spiritual energy tide, turning into the ocean tide, was a very beneficial thing for Wang Xian. He already had the water element. The influence of the tide on him was at least 2 to 3 times less than before. With this speed, the treasure will enter the black hole in 10 minutes at most. I wonder if the lords can get their hands on this treasure. Li Mayan frowned as she watched this scene and said softly, "This treasure's grade is definitely not low. It's protected by a powerful tide beast, and it also has such a strong spirituality." Li Mulong's face was also filled with astonishment as he said this. Unfortunately, a treasure of this grade was simply not something they could obtain. They were already very lucky to be able to obtain a divine weapon. We, the water elemental lords, have made our move. The treasure within the white light flowed in reverse. At this time, the gods couldn't hold it in any longer. A few of the water elemental gods immediately entered the tide and grabbed towards the treasure. Boom! Boom! When the gods got close, they were immediately attacked by the tide beasts. However, this time, the water elemental gods that entered weren't afraid of the tide beasts because of the ocean tide. WaterNet stopped them. A god held a divine staff in his hand, and a powerful water-type god formed an incomparably huge fishing net, fishing towards the white light. Walala! However, the moment the fishing net fell, what shocked everyone was that bone spikes suddenly attacked the fishing net, easily cutting off its restraints. Not good. In the ocean tide, even if we are water-type gods, under the impact of the ocean tide, our attack power will be weakened by more than 10 times. Unless we use divine artifacts or defense to pass through this group of tide beasts. The 9 wisps of divine fire god, who had released the net, growled with an ugly expression. Any energy that falls on the tide will be washed away by 90% of the attack. Using physical strength to enter is a good choice. You can also enter the ocean tide with a strong earth attribute defensive power. Wang Xian watched as the gods on the vast ocean tide attacked continuously. Let's give it a try. Seeing that the white light would return to the black hole in 7 to 8 minutes, Wang Xian decided to give it a try. Whoosh! His body moved, and he immediately flew into the ocean tide. Dragon King! Ming Huoyang Hua and Li Mulong looked bitter when they saw this scene and shouted. This friend actually dared to fly over. Li Mayan and Li Mulong's expressions changed slightly as they hurriedly looked over. Something bad will happen if he goes over so rashly. If he wants to enter the center of the tidal wave, he must at least have the strength of 7 wisps of divine fire. Even if he is of the water attribute, he must at least have the strength of 5 wisps of divine fire. Li Mayan's expression was a little unsightly. She quickly spoke to Minghua and Yanghua. Our Dragon King is very strong. He should be fine. Both of their expressions were uncertain, as they spoke with uncertainty. Not only do we have to be careful of the demon beasts of the energy tide and energy tide, but we also have to be careful of the pantheon of eternal thunder. Li Mulong's brows followed closely as he stared at Wang Xian's figure. Someone is flying over again. Even Lord Proverbs and the rest are unable to obtain that treasure. There are still people who dare to fly over. Which god is that? He looks so young. Some people noticed Wang Xian's figure and saw him immediately. Plop. Wang Xian did not fly towards the sky. Instead, he entered the energy tide directly from the edge. If one considered the energy tide as an ocean, the depth of this ocean was millions of kilometers. The flow of the ocean tide at the edge was not a trace. The strength of a demigod could withstand it. Wang Xian's body shook slightly. The yin-yang 5 elements Om's bowl slowly surrounded his body. Around the yin-yang five elements alms bowl, streams of water slowly covered it. Water-blue dragon scales appeared on the surface of his body. With 3 layers of protection, Wuxia unleashed his strongest defense. Buzz! His body moved and easily traversed dozens of kilometers under the sea. The further he went in, the greater the resistance. When he was more than 100 kilometers away from the center, he even had to unleash 20% of his strength to withstand the impact of the ocean tide. The water in the ocean tide is holy water to ordinary people. The speed of water attribute cultivators cultivating here is comparable to the cultivation speed in the Dragon Palace. As he sensed his surroundings, Wuxia's eyes sparkled. He looked ahead. Within the ocean tide, his yin-yang and 5 elements dragon eyes could only see a distance of more than 10 kilometers. There are 15 tide demonic beasts, and each of them is not weaker than 8 wisps of divine fire. Only the strength of 9 wisps of divine fire in the energy tide can contend with them. Because of the divine dragon bloodline, I control the 4 seas. I can barely exert 80% of my strength here. Wuxia stared ahead, his eyes flashing with brilliance. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, Wuxia saw a god emitting a powerful aura entering the tidal wave of the ocean. He was prepared for a final battle. If they were to see this treasure entering the tidal wave of the black hole, they would be unwilling to accept it. When the eternal leaves of God entered the tidal wave, a figure swept a glance at Wuxia. However, he also saw that Wuxia had entered the tidal wave from their side. He ignored it and flew towards the location of the white light. Roar! Roar! One by one, the tide beasts saw the gods entering and attacked the gods that were approaching them. Their bodies were as big as fish, but they had claws and a pair of bone wings. Their bodies were pale white, and they looked a little ferocious. Whoosh! 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 At this moment, more than 10 gods from Eternal Thunderclap entered the other side and grabbed towards the white light. Roar! Roar! A total of more than 30 gods from the 2 major forces immediately surrounded the white light. The 15 tidal beasts roared coldly. They controlled the surrounding tides to attack them. Wuxia did not hesitate and rushed towards the white light. Chapter 2062 2062 On the Sacred Wings of No Beginning. At this time, he had to rush over. It was impossible for him to just sit back and reap the benefits. Not to mention whether he had the chance or not. Even if he had the chance, he could not just wait by the side and take action. Otherwise, the moment he took the opportunity to rush over, he would be attacked by everyone. Perhaps even the people of Eternal Divine Leaf would attack him. After all, he did not know his identity as the Eternal Divine Leaves. At this moment, he had to make a move together with the gods of the Eternal Divine Leaves. Clang! He moved his palm and pulled out the dragon blood sword in his hand. Streams of water gathered on it. Wuxia attacked a tide demon beast in front of him. The water condensed into the head of the water dragon and attacked the tide demon beast directly. Around the tidal beast, there were 2 gods with 8 wisps of divine fire. They were delighted when they saw Wuxia's attack. My friend, let's work together to destroy this demonic beast. The rest of the demonic beasts are trapped. As long as we kill it, we will be able to enter the white light. A middle-aged man shouted at Wuxia. All right. Wuxia nodded his head and moved his body. His entire body was enveloped by the water currents and the yin-yang 5 elements alms bowl as he flew over. The energy tide demonic beast was more than 100 meters in size. It wasn't very big, but its 2 bone wings and 2 claws were extremely tough. The attacks of the other 2 gods landed on it one by one, leaving only a trace. Its body is very tough. Be careful. Another elder reminded loudly. It's very tough. I would like to see if this fellow's body is tough, or if the dragon blood sword in my hand is tough. Wuxia's body shimmered as he appeared in front of one of the claws of the energy tide demon beast in a flash. He raised the dragon blood sword in his hand and slashed it down heavily. Bang! A terrifying collision was transmitted from the energy tide. A huge crack appeared on the demon beast's claw. He was not surprised by this at all. What a sharp blood sword! The two middle-aged elders looked over and were astonished. Hurry up and help. Wang Xian was not complacent at all. With a swing of his sword, the demonic beast was injured. A huge bone wing directly slashed towards Wang Xian. The sharp bone spike left a terrifying mark in the energy tide. Raging Sea. An elder held a divine staff in his hand and pointed directly at the bone wing. The bottom of the energy tide stirred up a huge wave and hit the bone wings hard. Thunder. Another old man held a hammer of lightning and smashed it at the tide demon beast. Crack, crack, crack. Bolts of lightning sounded and caused the body of the tide demon beast to roll. Go to hell. Wang Xian held the dragon blood sword in his hand and slashed it at the head of the demon beast. Bang! A powerful collision sound rang out. The dragon blood sword in Wang Xian's hand slashed into the skull of the monster and sank into a depth of 5 to 6 meters. However, it was very difficult to kill a demon beast at the celestial stage. There were almost no vitals for a celestial stage expert, unless they were completely destroyed. Roar! 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 At this moment, the screams of the demon beast could be heard from the side. Wang Xian looked over and saw that a tide demon beast had been killed. Eternal Thunderclap and the rest have killed a demonic beast. Stop them. The gods of Eternal Divine Leaf looked over and immediately gave up on attacking the tide demonic beast in front of them. Instead, they tried to stop the two figures who were flying towards the white light. Get lost, you useless Eternal Divine Leaf. The two gods with 9 wisps of divine fire roared furiously. Streams of terrifying energy surged within the ocean tides. In the sky, huge tidal waves that were tens of thousands of meters high were created. The gods are fighting. Hiss. I wonder who will be able to obtain this treasure. Hopefully, it will be our Eternal Divine Leaf. At least hundreds of millions of people gathered around the two sides. When they saw the huge tidal waves in the sky, their expressions changed slightly. Oh no, a battle has broken out below. I'm afraid that our friend is doomed. Even if his strength is not weak, the death rate is still very high if he enters recklessly. Li Mayan, Li Mulong, and the rest looked worried when they saw the surging tide of the ocean. They had a good impression of Wang Xian. The chaotic battle within the energy tide began. Bang! Wang Xian's right arm turned into a dragon claw as he approached the direction of the Eternal Divine Leaf. The dragon claw held the dragon blood sword and smashed heavily onto the body of the tide demon beast. The tidal beast flew backward along with the tide. Charge in! At this moment, the middle-aged man and the old man who were fighting together with Wang Xian swept their gaze across and charged directly toward the white light. If you don't let us get it, you can forget about getting the treasure inside the Eternal Divine Leaf. However, at this moment 3 figures charged toward them. This is our chance. Wang Xian looked at the middle-aged man who was rushing towards him, and his body suddenly accelerated. How dare you ignore me? You are courting death. A lightning barrier was launched towards Wang Xian's body. The exploding lightning barrier even created a hollow area around the surrounding energy tide. Wang Xian sensed the violent attack, and his heart skipped a beat. The middle-aged man who was attacking him was the god of the 9 divine flames. Nothingness. At this moment, the yin-yang 5 elements alms bowl on his body flickered with the power of light and darkness. His body turned into nothingness for a short period of time. Buzz. Wang Xian's body shuttled through the violent lightning shield. Crack, crack. At the last moment, he was struck by a bolt of lightning on his shoulder. Fortunately, the layers of defense on his body blocked it. Wang Xian burst out with all his speed. With a flash from a distance of 10 kilometers, he charged straight into the white light. What? Damn it! One of the Eternal Leaf's fellows has entered. We can't let them succeed. When the middle-aged man saw Wang Xian enter, his expression changed drastically. He immediately shouted loudly, "Stall them and give our people a chance." When the gods of the Eternal Divine Leaves heard this, they revealed an excited look on their faces. They immediately shouted loudly, "Wang Xian, who had entered the white light, was slightly delighted when he heard the sounds outside. It was just as he had expected. Void was the greatest confidence that Wang Xian had when he barged in. It was also the more heaven-defying ability that he had mastered at the moment. Just like the void of the Ao Yao, it could be immune to any attack in an instant. However, the moment Wang Xian entered, a bone thorn pierced through him at a terrifying speed. Not good. At this moment, his expression changed drastically. A bone thorn pierced through his ribs directly. The intense pain was extremely painful. Damn it, what is this thing? His face was filled with shock. A terrifying luster shot out from his eyes as he stared forward. What entered his eyes was a pair of bone wings. It was completely different from the white bone wings that were condensed by the shadow in the sky. This pair of white bone wings was about 10 meters wide. They were formed from bones, and there wasn't the slightest sense of beauty. The entire pair of bone wings didn't contain any attributes. Other than this faint white light, there wasn't the slightest sense of holiness, or even a terrifying might. It was as if this was just a simple, indestructible bone. One of the bones pierced through his ribs, causing his body to tremble. Chapter 2063. 2063 Under the 2063 Uninitiated Holy Wings. Is this a treasure or a monster? That's not right. According to the information on the treasure-seeking ant, this is a treasure. The higher the level of the treasure, the stronger the spirituality it possesses. A treasure of the godly state can already communicate with humans. Based on the investigation of the treasure-seeking ant, this treasure is definitely of a higher level than a divine artifact. Wang Xian stared at the bone wings that had penetrated his body. A look of horror appeared on his face. He gritted his teeth and wanted to fly backward to escape from the strange bone wings. Buzz. However, the moment he moved, the strange bone spikes followed his movements. There was no way for him to escape. Damn it, how did I come across such a strange treasure? Wang Xian's face turned black. He gritted his teeth and tore open his ribs to forcefully escape from the bone spikes. Crack, crack. The sound of his ribs breaking could be heard. Enduring the intense pain, Wang Xian tore his ribs apart and forcefully moved the bone spike away. Phew! Just as he heaved a sigh of relief, there was a bone thick in the middle of the two bone wings. This bone spike was very short, as though it was embedded in his body. Before he could react, the short spike in the middle of the two bone wings had penetrated into his back. There was an intense collision, as if the bone wings were about to penetrate into his body. However, how could such a good thing happen? Even though the short thorn was not long, it was still about a meter long. The short thorn had penetrated Wang Xian's back in an instant. Ah! The sound of pain was heard. Wang Xian's expression changed drastically as a hint of panic appeared in his eyes. Oh no, he's devouring my bones. At this moment, Wang Xian's pupils contracted slightly. He felt that the short thorn in the middle was about to devour his bones. It was as if it was treating his bones as food. Damn it, what the hell is this? His face was filled with panic. It was not worth it to die in the hands of the skeletal wings. Even if he could revive, it would be a huge loss for him. Heart of light and darkness. Wang Xian sensed that his bones were being devoured bit by bit. He sensed that the short bone was located at the heart. Immediately he had an idea. The heart of light and darkness was the most precious treasure in the universe. It was the most important treasure of the divine dragon of light and darkness, who was at the peak of the universe. Buzz! The heart of light and darkness trembled slightly. A force of light and darkness slowly surrounded the bone wings and confronted it. The devouring force dissipated in an instant. However, that was all. The heart of light and darkness could only protect itself, and did not retaliate at all. Now that Wang Xian was the owner of the heart of light and darkness, he needed to mobilize all the power. Phew! Seeing that the strange bone wings were no longer devouring his bones, Wang Xian heaved a sigh of relief. Buzz! Just when Wang Xian thought that he was out of danger, the two bone spurs on the left and right wings behind him attacked him directly. Wang Xian didn't even have the strength to resist the attack in an instant. At this moment, Wang Xian's face turned completely black. The two bone spurs on his left and right pierced through his body. The devouring force was transmitted once again. Wang Xian took a deep breath and wanted to use the power of the Heart of Light and Darkness. However, the Heart of Light and Darkness didn't react at all. It was as if he could only balance the short spur in the middle. Do I really have to die here because of this strange bone thorn? Wang Xian's expression changed. For a moment, he had no choice but to wait for death. Hungry? Eat. 5 seconds later, Wang Xian's forehead was filled with cold sweat. Faint fluctuations suddenly entered his mind. Eat. Hungry? He was slightly stunned as his eyes flickered. Is this thing hungry? Do you want to eat something? Wang Xian's expression changed. Let's make a bet. If you want to eat, I'll let you eat. Wang Xian gritted his teeth. The area behind him moved slightly, and the virtual image of the Divine Kingdom's Dragon Palace appeared slightly. Roar! Roar! 2 low roars were heard. The avatar of the Divine Wind Dragon and the avatar of the Divine Thunder Dragon were slowly separated. Disperse the flesh and let him devour it. Wang Xian had a total of 7 avatars. As these 7 avatars were connected to his body, he could summon them instantly through the Dragon Palace of the Divine Kingdom. The 2 avatars appeared in the form of the Divine Dragon. The 2 avatars trembled slightly, and their flesh and blood were completely dispersed. The remaining bones looked extremely eerie and ferocious. The 2 avatars opened their mouths and bit towards the bone wings. Before the 2 doppelgangers could bite down, the bone spikes pierced through the head of the doppelgangers. In an instant, Wang Xian could feel that the devouring power of the 2 bone spikes in his body had completely disappeared. He could sense that the 2 doppelgangers were being devoured at a rapid speed. The most important thing for this doppelganger is the dragon soul. Since you have devoured the bones of the dragon soul, you should devour the dragon soul as well. Wang Xian's eyes flickered as a hint of malevolence appeared on his face. The 2 clones that were thousands of meters long were being devoured at a terrifying speed. Wang Xian could sense the bones of the dragon soul's follower entering the wings of the bone wings. Take over this bone wings. Wang Xian's heart stirred as the 2 dragon souls slowly covered the entire bone wings. Roar! Roar! A soundless roar sounded from within the bone wings. Wang Xian could sense that there seemed to be a living being inside the bone wings. This was the soul of this treasure. Devour him. Wang Xian ordered with a slightly ferocious expression. Roar! Roar! The 2 dragon souls immediately went to devour the soul within the bone wings. Roar! Roar! The soul seemed to be abnormally furious and immediately began to retaliate. However, this soul seemed to have been born not too long ago, and its offensive power was not that strong. In a split second, it immediately dodged to the spot where the short thorn pierced into Wang Xian's body. Buzz! When he entered the short spike, he released a surge of energy and blocked the attack of the 2 dragon souls directly. It was trembling as it hit inside and didn't move at all. Wang Xian frowned slightly when he saw this situation. The spot where the short spike was located seemed to be the center of his body. The 2 dragon souls couldn't do anything to it even if it hit inside. After all, this was his home. Wang Xian raised his eyebrows. With a thought, he flapped his wings slightly. Now he could easily control the 2 bone wings. At the same time, a piece of information was transmitted to his mind. Inceptive Holy Wings. This was the name of the bone wings. It sounded very cool, but according to the information in his mind, the Inceptive Holy Wings didn't have any attributes. Its attack power was very strong, but the prerequisite was that it could hit someone. The only function was that it was very fast. With the flapping of the wings, it could burst out the speed of a peak godly state. If the soul at the short point could cooperate with it, its speed might be even faster. No matter how I look at it, this effect doesn't match with a high-level treasure. Furthermore, it almost died at the hands of this guy. Even so, 2 of my clones have perished. Wang Xian frowned. At this moment his expression was extremely weak. He looked at his chest where he was pierced through. With a slight movement, He placed the short bone wing beside the heart of light and darkness. The heart of light and darkness could block the power of the Primalist holy wings. Crash. With a thought, a bone wing that was 20 meters wide appeared behind him. Chapter 2064. 2064 Ad in 2064. Each bone wing was about 10 meters in size. The white bone wings did not have any attributes. Wang Xian was floating in the middle of the ocean tide. The bone wings did not look beautiful at all. However, the entire bone wing did not have any attributes. It looked rather useless. Buzz. He moved slightly and streams of water flowed onto the body of the bone wings. Buzz. When the bone wings were covered by the water, Wang Xian's expression changed slightly. His expression became more interesting. He relaxed his entire body and did not use any energy. At this moment, a strange scene appeared. Wang Xian's body was not impacted by the ocean tides. Is this the ability of the bone wings? His face was filled with joy. Ignore the impact of the ocean tide. Only 7 wisps of divine fire could stand in the ocean tide. The gods of the 6 wisps of divine fire would not die if they entered the ocean tide. However, they would be washed away by the ocean tide. There was no way for them to stand in the ocean tide. However, he could stand in the ocean tide just by covering the water attribute on the bone wings. This kind of energy was rather powerful. In other words, with this bone wings, I can ignore any environment and unleash the strength of the peak of the godly state. Wang Xian's eyes flickered. With a slight movement of his body, he left this space immediately. Ah! Just as Wang Xian came out, a scream was heard. Wang Xian quickly looked over and saw a group of more than 30 people fighting in front of him. The eyes of more than 30 people were completely bloodshot. They didn't even notice that there was a change in the area covered by the white light just now. Fang Tian. The faces of more than 10 people from the eternal divine leaves changed drastically when they heard the scream. They shouted in unison. Ha ha ha, you trash from the eternal divine leaves. Even if we can't get the treasure today, it's still worth it to be able to kill 2 of you, who have 8 wisps of divine fire. Ha ha ha. An elder of eternal thunderclap held the long spear in his hand, with a ferocious expression. The long spear was covered in lightning, and completely penetrated the middle-aged man in front of him. The middle-aged man's face was filled with despair. Eternal thunderclap, you are courting death. The eternal divine leaves looked over, and revealed an extremely furious expression. 8th elder, that fellow from eternal divine leaves has come out. He has obtained the treasure. At this moment, a middle-aged man from eternal thunderclap saw Wang Xian who was beside the white light. He looked shocked and shouted immediately. At this moment, everyone looked towards Wang Xian's position. The bone wings on his body are that treasure. It's the bone wings. An elder from eternal thunderclap shouted immediately. Wang Xian ignored their gazes and looked at the fallen middle-aged man with a frown. The fallen middle-aged man was the middle-aged man who had attacked the tide demonic beast with him not long ago. He did not expect that this middle-aged man would actually die because of this. Swoosh. His gaze swept across the group of experts with eternal shock. After hesitating for a moment, he moved his body and flew directly towards the top of the ocean tide. Splash. Wang Xian easily rushed out of the ocean tide and hovered in the sky. Someone is coming out. When Wang Xian rushed out of the ocean tide, hundreds of millions of people on both sides were flying towards the top of the ocean tide. It doesn't seem to be our Lord Eternal Shocking Thunder. At the north side, some people were looking at him in astonishment. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, figures rushed out from the ocean tide. A few of them attacked Wang Xian directly. Wang Xian looked over and saw 3 gods of 9 wisps of divine fire, eternal thunderclap, attacking him. The 3 of them had cold killing intent on their faces as they stared at the bone wings on his back. Leave the treasure behind. An old man roared and threw the lightning spear in his hand directly at Wang Xian. Buzz. Wang Xian's heart skipped a beat. His bone wings flapped slightly, and his figure disappeared instantly. He flew towards the eastern region. What a fast speed! The expressions of the three gods with 9 wisps of divine fire changed slightly. They were shocked. Such speed was comparable to the peak of the godly state. This bone wings is definitely a very precious treasure. An elder growled in a low voice. Whoosh! 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 The sound of water breaking could be heard from below. The three of them looked at each other and hurriedly retreated. Eternal divine leaf. You exchanged 2 gods with 8 wisps of divine fire for a treasure. It's too good for you. The gods of eternal shock roared in dissatisfaction. Bullshit, one of you has fallen as well. A burly old man who had rushed out from the ocean tide shouted furiously when he heard their words. Haha, that 8-wisp divine fire god exchanged for a treasure. We exchanged it for you. The eternal thunderclap expert immediately laughed maniacally as he replied. Although the bone wings looked extraordinary, it was worth it for an 8-wisp divine fire god to exchange for a treasure. What? 2 of our lords have died? The treasure has been obtained by us. Who is the lord who obtained the treasure? I don't know him. I don't think our eternal divine leaves has such a young god. It's that person. In the eastern region, everyone had an ugly expression on their faces when they heard the words of the gods. Some of them looked at Wang Xian with a puzzled expression. However, Li Mayan, Li Mulong, and the rest immediately recognized Wang Xian. They opened their mouths slightly and revealed shocked expressions. Not only did he come out alive, but he also obtained that supreme treasure. Was it the bone wings? Li Mulong and the rest were extremely shocked. Buzz! The bone wings were flapped once again, and Wang Xian appeared beside them in an instant. With a slight movement of his conviction, the bone wings slowly retracted into Wang Xian's body. Dragon King! Ming Huoyang! And Huoyang immediately walked forward and shouted in astonishment. This friend Yu. Li Mulong and the rest stared at Wang Xian in astonishment. They were beyond shocked. Who is he? I don't know. However, he knows Li Mulong and the rest. He should be the lord of our eternal divine leaf. He looks so young. More people looked at Wang Xian, their faces filled with doubt. Whoosh! 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 At this moment, the gods of the eternal leaf flew over from the ocean tide. They were also staring at Wang Xian, and their expressions were unsightly. They didn't know this young man, or the god who obtained the treasure. More than 10 gods flew over to Wang Xian. The lords are here. When Li Mayan saw the lords flying over, her expression changed and she frowned. They knew that Wang Xian wasn't someone from the eternal divine leaf. Now that he had obtained the treasure, the eternal divine leaf had lost 2 gods with 8 wisps of divine fire. This, little brother, who are you? Which faction are you from? At this moment, more than 10 top-notch experts from Eternal Leaf came to Wang Xian and surrounded him without leaving a trace. Chapter 2065. 2065 joined in. Our lords don't know who that youth is either. This, our eternal divine leaf lost 2 gods all to cover up. Which faction does that youth come from? He doesn't look old, but to be able to enter the center of the ocean tide, his strength must be extraordinary. When everyone saw the group of people surrounding the young man, who had obtained the treasure, they were astonished. Wang Xian looked at the gods surrounding the eternal divine leaves and frowned slightly. If it wasn't for their resistance, it would have been difficult for him to obtain the incorporeal holy wings. I'm Wang Xian from the Dragon Palace. He looked at the gods of the eternal divine leaves and cupped his hands to show his respect. Dragon Palace. The gods looked at each other and revealed a puzzled expression. In that case, you are no longer a member of the eternal divine leaves. The old man in the middle took a step forward and locked his gaze on Wang Xian. He is a friend, not an enemy. Wang Xian said to him calmly. If you say he's a friend, then he's a friend? We have lost 2 experts because of this treasure. Hand over this treasure or else. A burly middle-aged man growled in a low voice with an embarrassed look on his face. 9th Elder, they were brought here by us. At this moment Li Mayan, who was standing at the side, hesitated for a moment before speaking to the elders of the eternal divine leaf. Oh, The gods looked at Li Mayan. We were fighting with Eternal Thunder's disciples for a divine weapon downstream. After that, we saw that they killed all of Eternal Thunder's people, including 3 gods, and a direct descendant of Eternal Thunder was also killed by them. They wanted to go to our center, so we brought them here. Li Mayan told them everything. Huh? They killed a direct disciple of Eternal Shocking Thunder? The old man who was addressed as Elder Jiu raised his eyebrows and looked at Wang Xian. The eyes of the rest of the Eternal Divine Leaves gods flickered slightly. It was much harder to kill a direct disciple of Eternal Shocking Thunder than an ordinary god. Those who dared to kill a direct disciple of Eternal Shocking Thunder were considered friends in their Eternal Divine Leaves. Even if you are our friend, in order to protect you, Eternal Shocking Thunder sacrificed 2 gods with 8 wisps of divine fire. You still have to hand over that treasure. The burly middle-aged man retracted the coldness on his face and said to Wang Xian expressionlessly, "It's impossible for me to give you the bone wings. In order to obtain that treasure, I paid a huge price." Wang Xian looked at the middle-aged man and shook his head. Huh? The burly middle-aged man slowly emitted a wave of pressure. Let's change the conditions. After all, I can obtain this treasure with your help. Wang Xian said directly to them. The reason why he was able to obtain the incorporeal holy wings this time was because they were able to hold off the Eternal Thunderclap experts. Otherwise, he would never have obtained this treasure. Furthermore, he felt a little guilty about the 2 people who were killed. He, Wang Xian, would not ignore them since he was the cause. You are not the enemy, and we will not make an enemy out of you. However, we have lost 2 gods with 8 wisps of divine fire because of this. Even if we killed one of them, we still lost one. This way, join us with the Eternal Divine Leaf, and use our military merits to offset this treasure. Or you can take out enough items to compensate us. If you don't choose either, we will have to take the treasure away from you. Elder Jiu said to Wang Xian and gave him 2 options. Military merits. Wang Xian looked at them in puzzlement. That's right, it's military merits. You can obtain military merits by killing the person who killed Eternal Thunderclap and handing over the treasure. As long as you have sufficient military merits, you can even seek guidance from the Divine Master Shinai. Elder Jiu spoke to him indifferently and stared at him with a burning gaze. Make your choice. Then I choose to join Eternal Divine Leaf. Wang Xian pondered for a moment and nodded his head. All right, let's get straight to the point. Don't even think about leaving. Otherwise, we will announce that you killed Eternal Thunderclap's disciple. In addition, we will also hunt you down. If you offend 2 eternal forces, there will be no place for you in the entire endless star field. Elder Jiu said indifferently. He looked at Li Muyan and the others. Introduce these friends to us. Get familiar with them. Let's go. We are preparing to send off Fang Tian and Meng Han brothers. Elder Jiu looked at the surrounding gods and said indifferently. Okay. Everyone nodded and turned around to leave. They had been fighting against the Eternal Thunderbolt for tens of thousands of years. Every time a powerful treasure appeared, a powerful god would definitely die. This was not the first time they had encountered such a situation. Everyone was prepared for this. Wang Xian watched them leave and did not say anything. The reason why he chose to join this place was because the 2 gods died because of him. Other than that, there was another important thing. He wanted to stay in this energy tide for a period of time. Now that he had the Primalist Holy Wings, he had no effect in traveling through the energy tide. He could obtain many treasures here. Furthermore, the 2 of them had fallen largely because of him. At the very least, I want to kill a few Eternal Thunderclap fellows as a sacrifice for their souls in heaven. Wang Xian mumbled. Brother Wang Xian, right? It's a good choice for you to join our Eternal Thunderclap. You look so young. I didn't expect you to be so strong. Li Mulong smiled at Wang Xian. Please tell me about your military merits. Wang Xian smiled and asked him. Young Master Wang Xian, let me tell you. The energy tide is a land of treasures. It is the boundary between the eastern and northern regions. At the same time, it is also a battlefield. The battlefield between us and Eternal Thunderclap often erupts in battles for various treasures. For this reason, our Lord Shinai has established military merits here. The more treasures we obtain, and the more enemies we kill, the more military merits we obtain. Military merits can be exchanged for treasures. We can even invite our Lord Shinai to guide us in our cultivation. If you have sufficient military merits, our Eternal Divine Leaf's experts might take you in as a disciple. You might even be able to obtain a very high position if you join the Eternal Divine Leaf. Li Mayan explained to Wang Xian, I'll bring you to the military merits hall now. You'll know once you see it. Once the number of military merits reaches a certain level, you can even mobilize some of our disciples to work together. I see. Wang Xian nodded. In order to motivate the disciples and people from the eastern region to come here to fight against Eternal Thunderclap, Eternal Divine Leaf had set up military merits. This military merit was really effective. Together with this treasure land, hundreds of millions of people were spread around. Chapter 2066. 2066. I have a predestined relationship with this treasure. Military Merit Hall. Following Li Mayan to the Military Merit Hall, Wang Xian read the messages one by one. Military merits were divided into 9 levels. 1 leaf was the lowest and 9 leaves were the highest. Each person's military merits could be displayed. The person with 1 leaf embroidered on his chest represented the person with 1 leaf. The person with 2 leaves embroidered on his chest represented the person with 2 leaves. In order to advance from 1 leaf to 2 leaves, one needed to complete 10 one-leaf military merits. Killing a god with 1 wisp of divine fire from Eternal Shocking Thunder could obtain 5 one-leaf military merits. A divine artifact with 1 wisp of divine fire was equivalent to 10 one-leaf military merits. One could directly become a 2-leaf military merits person. And so on. After becoming a 5-leaf military merits person, one could mobilize some of the power of Eternal Shocking Thunder. If he wanted to join the Eternal Divine Leaf completely, he would be able to obtain great power. Of course, to be able to become a 5-leaf meritorious serviceman, his own strength would be able to ignite at least 6 wisps of divine fire. Other than that, he would also be able to obtain a divine weapon by consuming military credits. In short, military credits had many benefits. Wang Xian took a brief look before he decided to join the Eternal Divine Leaf. Young Master Wang. What our 9th elder means is that young Master Wang can only leave this place after becoming a 7-leaf meritorious serviceman. However, there's no need to be anxious, young Master Wang. With your strength, you might be able to become a 7-leaf meritorious serviceman in less than a few hundred years. Li Mayan said to Wang Xian from the side. A few hundred years? A 7-leaf meritorious serviceman? Wang Xian smiled when he heard her words. Based on the accumulation of military merits, if he wanted to become a person with 7 leaves of merit, he would have to kill at least 4 experts of Eternal Shocking Thunder. Or he could hand over 2 divine weapons that could rival 7 wisps of divine fire. This requirement was not low, but it was not very high either. After all, the 9th elder and the rest were almost certain that the divine weapons that Wang Xian obtained could at least rival 8 or 9 wisps of divine fire. Sure. Wang Xian nodded his head faintly. He had his own thoughts and criteria. He would repay Eternal Shocking Thunder for what he owed them this time. Buzz! Buzz! At this moment, a sorrowful atmosphere spread across the entire continent. They are paying their respects to Master Feng and the rest. Li Mayan and the rest had solemn expressions on their faces. The death of 2 masters with 8 wisps of divine fire was no small matter to Eternal Shocking Thunder. Let's go and pay our respects. Wang Xian said to them. Okay. Li Mayan and the rest nodded their heads and immediately flew towards the place where they were paying their respects. They landed on the ground ahead of time. The people at the entrance didn't stop them. Li Mayan and the rest had some status in Eternal Divine Leaf. The atmosphere was solemn when they entered. A few hundred people were gathered inside, and half of them were the gods of Eternal Thunderclap. At the front, there was a row of people kneeling. They were the relatives of the two fallen powerhouses. Wang Xian and the rest entered and bowed towards the memorial tablet. They stood quietly at the side. 10 minutes later, the pantheon slowly left, leaving behind a row of people kneeling in front. Wang Xian was not staying here either. Young Master Wang, you can leave first. Let's go comfort a friend, Li Mayan said to him, and walked towards the front. Okay. Wang Xian nodded and walked out. Stop right there. However, when Wang Xian reached the door, a cold shout came from the back. When Wang Xian heard the voice coming towards him, he frowned slightly and turned his head to look at the back. A young man stared at him coldly. Beside the young man, Li Mayan and the rest were standing beside him with unpleasant expressions. Wang Xian stopped his footsteps and looked at the young man who was walking towards him with a slight frown. Did you cause the death of my grandfather? The young man had a hint of anger on his face as he stared at him coldly. You should know how he died. Looking at the aggressive young man, Wang Xian frowned slightly. Fang Muqing, it's not like you didn't. Shut up. Li Mayan opened her mouth to explain to Wang Xian, but the young man immediately shouted at her. Her expression changed as she looked at the young man. It was obvious that she was afraid of him. My grandfather sacrificed himself for that treasure. However, my grandfather and the rest thought that the one who got the treasure was someone from Eternal Thunderclap. However, he didn't know that it was an outsider. It's all because of you. If it wasn't for you, my grandfather and the rest wouldn't have died. Since my grandfather died for that treasure, hand over that treasure now. The young man stared at Wang Xian and said sternly, hand over the treasure to you. Wang Xian was slightly taken aback. He stared at him as if he was looking at an idiot and said faintly, you want me to give this treasure to you because of your grandfather's death? This treasure was created by my grandfather with his life. The young man said coldly. His eyes sparkled as he said, don't worry, I will give you some compensation. Hand over the treasure now. Idiot. Even the experts of your eternal divine leaves didn't ask me to hand it over. Do you think I will hand it over with just a word from you? Wang Xian stared at the young man in amusement. His face was filled with disdain. Do you know who I am? When the young man heard Wang Xian's words, a vicious look appeared on his face as he spoke in a sinister tone. I don't care who you are. Wang Xian looked at him coldly. Fang Muqing, the adults have already decided on something. Forget it. At the side, a girl spoke to the young man. Meng Muqing, could it be that your master has fallen? Are you really that willing? Fang Muqing stared at the lady beside him and growled in a low voice with an extremely embarrassed expression. So what if I'm unwilling? Only by becoming stronger can I avenge my master. Meng Muqing said coldly. I don't blame you for this, but I hope you can kill a few more of those bastards from the Eternal Thunderclap in the future. As she spoke, she looked at Wang Xian before turning around and walking towards the memorial tablet. You better hand over that treasure. When Fang Muqing saw her leaving, he glared at Wang Xian fiercely. Hee. Wang Xian smiled in disdain before turning around and leaving. When Li Mayan and the rest saw this scene, they frowned slightly. Shaking their heads, they walked towards Meng Muqing's location. Dragon King, that Fang Muqing's status might not be low. I saw that the 9th elder of the Eternal Divine Leaf was very polite to him before he left. After walking out of the courtyard where they were worshipping, Ming Hua and Yang Hua, who were following behind him, said to Wang Xian, what's there to worry about a guy who hasn't ignited the divine fire? Wang Xian said indifferently. He didn't take it seriously at all. Let's go to the energy tide. I don't like to owe others a favor. As Wang Xian spoke, he immediately flew toward the energy tide. With the incorporeal holy wings, Wang Xian was prepared to stay here for a period of time to obtain some resources and treasures. The main purpose of his trip this time was to obtain resources and treasures. As for the two little girls, let them wait a little longer. Chapter 2067. 2067. I have a predestined relationship with this treasure. It's him. That treasure ended up in his hands. It seems to be a pair of bone wings. Wings are a rare artifact. His speed was terrifying just now. The level of that treasure must be very high. This time, this person has made a huge profit. When Wang Xian came to the edge of the energy tide, some people looked over and whispered with curiosity. Ignoring the discussions around him, Wang Xian came to the edge of the energy tide and looked at the vast energy tide. Dragon King, are we really going to stay here for a few hundred years to complete our military exploits before leaving? Ming Hua and Yang Hua looked at the energy tide in front of them, with a hint of bitterness on their faces. A few hundred years? At most, we'll stay here for a year. Wang Xian scanned his surroundings. He wanted to stay here for a year, to see how many treasures he could obtain. If there were many treasures, he could consider staying here for a few more years. Squeak squeak. Wang Xian moved his palm, and the treasure-seeking ant appeared in his hand. He placed it on his shoulder, and looked at the vast energy tide in front of him quietly. The main task is to explore the energy tide in front of us. Wang Xian gave an order to the treasure-seeking ant. Squeak squeak. The tentacles of the treasure-seeking ant were all pointed in the direction of the energy tide. Wang Xian hovered in the sky and waited quietly. What is the Dragon King doing? Ming Hua and Yang Hua looked at the Dragon King, who was standing there quietly with a dumbfounded expression. They did not dare to ask or say anything. They stood to the left and right of Wang Xian, and similarly hovered quietly in the air. The water spirit pearl at the level of a demigod at level 8 has been discovered. In less than 5 minutes, a piece of information appeared in Wang Xian's mind. Following that, an image appeared in his mind. Wang Xian raised his head and looked over. The water spirit pearl at the level of a demigod at level 8 was not considered a valuable treasure, but it was still considered pretty good. Moreover, the water spirit pearl was only about 20 kilometers away from him. Wang Xian waved his arm, and an energy claw directly grabbed towards the ocean tide in front of him. Splash! Very soon, the claw entered the energy tide and grabbed the water spirit pearl. The water spirit pearl is of quite a high level. That person has actually obtained the water spirit pearl. Around the ocean tide, at least a few 100 million people were either cultivating or observing the tide to see if there were any treasures. When they saw Wang Xian taking out a water spirit pearl, some of them looked envious. It's so far away. You can see it even from the ocean tide? Ming Hua and Yang Hua were a little dumbfounded. A water spirit pearl with a demigod rank 8 is not even worth a single leaf of military merit. Wang Xian held the water spirit pearl and placed it in a separate interspatial ring. I have found a level 5 demigod ice slurry. In less than 5 minutes, another piece of news came. Wang Xian raised his eyebrows and extended his arm again. Whoosh! Whoosh! Soon, the level 5 demigod ice slurry appeared in his hand. I got another one. Damn, his eyes are so sharp. This lord is someone who can enter the center of the ocean tide. His strength is at least 7 wisps of divine fire. How can he not be powerful? A few people who were closer to Wang Xian said enviously when they saw that he had caught another treasure. We have discovered a water treasure at the peak of the demigod level. More than 10 minutes later, the information of the treasure-seeking ant was transmitted over again. This water treasure was relatively far away, and was close to eternal thunderclap. Wang Xian narrowed his eyes slightly. With a wave of his arm, a claw instantly pierced through the space of a few 100 kilometers, and grabbed the water treasure at the peak of the demigod level from the water. What? Damn! How could those guys from the eternal divine leaves discover our treasure? At this moment, in the sky above the energy tide, a middle-aged man had already discovered the water treasure. He was filled with excitement and wanted to go and retrieve it. However, before he could make a move, a claw grabbed it and flew towards the opposite direction. His expression changed drastically, and he couldn't help but curse. Damn, this works? Isn't this heaven-defying? Does he have any eye-bloodline techniques? He can even discover the treasures on the opposite side. A peak-stage demigod water treasure. This is a good thing. It's very helpful in igniting the divine fire. Everyone in the surrounding area widened their eyes and revealed an incredulous expression. It hasn't even been half an hour, and you've already caught 3 treasures. What the hell? Do you have to be so fast? What was worse was that the water treasure was obtained from somewhere close to the eternal thunderbolt. How did he discover it? One had to know that even though an expert could see clearly at such a distance, it was impossible for a treasure to see the treasures within the ocean tide. I'm rich. When Ming Huyanghua saw this scene, he widened his eyes and revealed an extremely heated expression. At this moment, Wang Xian squinted his eyes slightly, and a hint of surprise flashed across his face. The water snake sword that has discovered a wisp of divine fire. There are so many treasures here. Wang Xian's face was filled with surprise. A divine sword that resembled a water snake was located at the center of the energy tide. The water snake sword was only more than a meter long. It was difficult to discover it, as it was located within the ocean tide. His body moved, and he flew directly toward the center of the energy tide. A divine artifact, he needed to do it himself. I can sense it. I can sense the aura of a divine artifact. At this moment, the 2 water-type gods in the surrounding area revealed extremely excited expressions. Their bodies moved, and they flew directly to the sky above the energy tide, opening their eyes wide as they carefully sensed it. Many people had their own techniques to search for treasures within this energy tide. Some of the gods with the corresponding attributes could still sense the faint fluctuations of a divine fire divine artifact. However, they weren't able to immediately find the exact location. After all, finding an item that was 1 or 2 meters in size within this vast energy tide was akin to finding a needle in a haystack. There's a divine weapon. At the opposite location of eternal thunderclap, some people were also flying towards the sky above the energy tide. While they were carefully observing the energy tide, they were also vigilantly staring at some of the gods of the eternal divine leaf. Whoosh! At this moment, Wang Xian had already arrived above the water snake sword, and was casually fishing for a divine weapon with a wisp of divine fire. The water snake sword that possessed spiritual energy wanted to attack Wang Xian, but it was easily subdued by him. Holding the water snake sword in his hand, Wang Xian flew directly toward the shore. What? How is this possible? What a fast speed! Everyone was still searching for the divine weapon. In the end, someone had already taken it away. This caused them to be astonished. Regardless of whether it was the people from Eternal Thunderclap or the disciples of Eternal Divine Leaf, all of them looked at Wang Xian in astonishment. I am fated to be with this treasure. Wang Xian saw that everyone around him was focusing their attention on him. He spoke faintly and entered everyone's ears. I am fated to be with this treasure. Who is he trying to fool? Why am I not fated to be with this treasure? Wang Xian flew to the shore and looked at the water snake sword in his hand. The sword radiance was flickering and revealed its sharpness. It was a good sword. 1 stroke of the water snake sword can make me a 2-leaf military meritorious practitioner. Wang Xian smiled faintly. Chapter 2068. 2068. I have a predestined relationship with this treasure 3. That Lord has such a terrifying perception. Has it been an hour? He seems to have obtained quite a number of treasures. He seems to be a water attribute cultivator with special abilities. It just so happens that it's the ocean tide now. That's why he was able to find so many treasures with such precision. On the north side of the energy tide, everyone had astonished looks on their faces when they saw Wang Xian holding the water snake sword artifact. The 2 gods who flew above the energy tide had a change of expression as they flew back. This seems to be formed naturally. It should be a sword formed by a water snake due to special reasons. The universe is really magical. Wang Xian placed the water snake sword into his interspatial ring and stood there waiting quietly. Time passed slowly once again. Some people in the surroundings would look over curiously from time to time. I have found a metal material of a demigod level 3. Whoosh. In less than 10 minutes, the treasure-seeking ant sent a message. Wang Xian waved his arm, and grabbed a piece of metal material that was located at the edge of the ocean tide. Although the entire metal material was only at the level of a demigod level 3, it was about 4 to 5 cubic meters in size. If it was used to forge weapons, it could be used to forge dozens of pieces. He got another treasure, a metal material, and it's even at the level of a demigod. Hiss, that lord is so powerful. How long has it been? 10 minutes. He got some more treasures. Is this demigod level material fated with him too? Wang Xian's consecutive acquisition of some treasures had already attracted the attention of many people. When they saw that he got another piece of metal material 10 minutes later, all of them widened their eyes slightly. This was fate with the metal material. Wang Xian's expression didn't change at all when he saw the astonishment of the people around him. He stood there quietly and didn't hide anything. He couldn't hide such a situation either. Since he could hide it for 1 day and couldn't hide it for 2 days, he might as well not hide anything at all. In any case, this treasure was fated to be with him. In the next 10 hours or so, he didn't encounter any divine artifact level treasure. However, there was a demigod grade treasure every 10 minutes or so. It could be a weapon material, water spirit pearl, or the like. Even though Wang Xian did not obtain any more divine weapons, he kept obtaining treasures one after another, which left everyone dumbfounded. Even some of the people from Eternal Thunderclap stared at him with embarrassed expressions. When they saw the claw flying towards them, they immediately launched an attack. However, in these 10 hours, Wang Xian was completely famous. In these 10 hours, he obtained an average of 6 demigod-level treasures every hour. In these 10 hours, these demigod-level treasures were worth a lot of money. Very soon, news of this matter spread quickly. More and more people came to this place and looked at the calm figure in front of them. Muxian, you've eaten too little. Eat a little more. If Lord Meng finds out that you're like this, his heart will ache. You're his only disciple. You must live well. In a restaurant floating in the air on the northern side of the energy tide, Li Mayan, Meng Muxin, and the others were sitting at the dining table. Seeing that Meng Muxin rarely ate, Li Mayan said with concern, "Don't worry." Meng Muxin nodded and forced out a smile. It's a pity that Lord Meng's interspatial ring and God Country were obtained by those damn guys. If these treasures were still there. Damn it. Bang. Li Mulong frowned and said. Before he could finish his words, the young man slammed the table heavily and growled angrily. Fang Muqing, you should be more open-minded. Li Mayan whispered from the side. Have you heard? The god who obtained the supreme treasure is now exploring the treasure before the energy tide. He will obtain a demigod-level treasure at least every 10 minutes. It seems that he has also obtained a divine weapon. When I came back just now, that lord was indeed quite powerful. In the past 10 hours, he has obtained at least 70 or 80 demigod-level treasures, right? He's simply too powerful. If he's always there, wouldn't he be making a fortune? Right at this moment, a lively discussion rang out from within the restaurant. When Fang Muqing heard the discussion, his eyes flashed with a cold light as he instantly stood up. Who's the person you're talking about? His gaze was cold as he questioned the people who had spoken just now, his body emitting an intense murderous aura. Oh, you brat. Young Master Fang. The expressions of the middle-aged men who had spoken changed slightly when they heard his question. However, when they saw Fang Muqing's face, they immediately squeezed out a smile. Young Master Fang. It's that young man who obtained that supreme treasure yesterday. It's him. He has obtained many treasures now. The middle-aged men immediately said. Let's go and take a look. Fang Muqing heard their words and said to Li Mayan and the others. Then, he walked straight towards the location of the energy tide. Li Mayan, Li Mulong, and the others' faces were filled with doubt. After hesitating for a moment, they stood up and followed behind him. Hiss. Young Master Fang seems to have some opinions about that lord. Of course he has opinions. His grandfather died because he was fighting for that treasure. Moreover, I heard that Lord Fang Tian was building a divine kingdom for young Master Fang when he was alive. Once the divine kingdom is built, and the divine fire is ignited to become a god, young Master Fang will be able to change from an in-name disciple to a disciple. This is that person's personal disciple. He has reached the sky in a single step. With his talent, he is indeed qualified to be that Lord's disciple. Fang Xiaoqing from the east is not called for nothing. Seeing Fang Muqing and the rest leaving, some people in the restaurant whispered among themselves. We finally encountered something good. In front of the energy tide, Wang Xian suddenly raised his eyebrows. Looking at the information in his mind, he revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. Whoosh! He immediately flew toward the center of the energy tide. Has this sir discovered a powerful treasure? It must be. He has been using his energy claws to grab it. Now that he is flying over personally, it must be a powerful treasure. Could it be a divine artifact? The moment Wang Xian flew out, the people who had been watching him revealed a look of astonishment. Splash! At this moment, everyone could hear the crisp sound of water flowing in front of the energy tide. That is a divine weapon. Another divine weapon. Everyone looked towards the source of the sound and saw a 2-meter-long wooden sailboat suddenly drilling out of the water from the energy tide. The wooden sailboat was emitting a powerful divine glow and attracted everyone's attention. A divine artifact with at least 4 or 5 wisps of divine fire. A god's eyes lit up as he shouted loudly. What? A wooden sailboat with at least 4 or 5 wisps of divine fire appearing on the ocean tide. Fang Muqing and the others, who had just rushed over, immediately looked forward when they heard the voice. Chapter 2069. 2069 Fate, with this treasure for. A wooden sailboat appeared above the ocean tide. It drilled out of the water and gave off a green luster. The luster covered a radius of about 10 kilometers, and it was exceptionally clear on the ocean tide. A powerful divine artifact appeared, and the eye-catching divine light made everyone around look excited. The gods with 6 or 7 wisps of divine fire immediately flew towards the ocean tide. On the opposite side, eternal shocking thunder, and the other experts also flew towards the ocean tide. A wooden sailboat. This is definitely a powerful divine artifact for us with attribute cultivators. When Fang Muqing saw the divine artifact on the ocean tide, his eyes revealed an incomparably hot expression. Without any hesitation, he spread out his arms, and a wooden wing appeared on his back. Whoosh! 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 Thistle after thistle sounded, and he flew into the energy tide at a terrifying speed. As one of the top geniuses of the eternal thunderclap, even if he hadn't ignited the divine fire yet, his speed was still not slower than a god with a wisp of divine fire. However, there were too many gods that were flying over. There were also quite a number of gods with 6 or 7 wisps. At the location of eternal thunderclap, there were even 7 or 8 god-level powerhouses with wisps of divine fire flying over. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm fated to have this treasure. At this moment, Wang Xian, who was the first to fly out, sensed that there were at least tens of thousands of people flying over from the front and behind. He raised his eyebrows and looked at the wooden sailboat that was only a few thousand meters away. He said faintly. His voice spread across a radius of a few hundred kilometers. Every powerhouse who was flying in his direction could hear it clearly. FUCK off, you are fated to be with this treasure. Die. At the front, the 5 or 6 gods who were flying at the front heard Wang Xian's words. Their faces were filled with cold killing intent. The ultimate sound of thunder. Crack, crack, crack. An explosive sound was heard. It was as if the void had exploded. A bolt of lightning extended directly toward Wang Xian. 5 bolts of lightning. Crack. An attack came and another cold cry rang out. 5 bolts of heavenly lightning covered the sky. Bolts of lightning that were at least 100 meters thick struck towards Wang Xian. Buzz! Wang Xian looked at the attacks one after another. A faint smile appeared on his face. His body shook. A huge uninitiated holy wings appeared behind him. The wings flapped slightly and easily evaded the attacks. At the same time, Wang Xian's palm turned into a dragon claw and clawed at the wooden sailboat below. Crash! The dragon claw held the sailboat. Wang Xian's wings fluttered slightly and left a trail as he flew toward the edge. Hee. I've already said that I'm fated to obtain this treasure. Why are you all here to fight over it? The incorporeal holy wing trembled. Wang Xian's speed had reached a terrifying level. Before anyone could react, he returned to his original position. A 1-meter-long sailboat appeared in his hand, and he sized it up carefully. A wood-type divine weapon with 5 wisps of divine fire. Wang Xian looked at the sailboat in his hand and muttered, "Hiss, what a terrifying speed. Such speed. Even a god with 9 wisps of divine fire can't compare to it, right? That divine weapon has been obtained by him again. This speed is simply too terrifying. Is it because of the bone wings on his back? This divine weapon is at least at the level of 9 wisps of divine fire, right?" Everyone was shocked when they saw Wang Xian standing there quietly with the divine weapon in his hand. "Damn it, don't let us meet you." The furious roars of the eternal thunderclap experts could be heard from the opposite side. A divine weapon with 5 wisps of divine fire could be equivalent to a god with 5 wisps of divine fire when fully utilized. This speed is too fast. The group of gods from the eternal divine leaves flew back and looked at Wang Xian. Their eyes sparkled with astonishment. They looked at the bone wings that were slowly disappearing behind Wang Xian. Their eyes were burning with passion. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, Fang Muqing flew over and stared at Wang Xian with an embarrassed expression. He stood in front of Wang Xian and stared at the spot behind him. Is this the treasure that my grandfather and the rest exchanged for with their lives? He stared at Wang Xian with a gloomy face and growled in a low voice. Wang Xian glanced at him indifferently and ignored him. Instead, he studied the wooden sailboat in his hand. Buzz! With a move of his hand, the wooden sailboat turned into a few thousand meters in size and floated in the air like a void ship. There was a divine tree in the middle of the sailboat that was emitting a mystical luster. It was a pretty good treasure. This divine artifact. The majestic wood-type vitality caused all the wood-type cultivators in the surroundings to reveal burning expressions on their faces. Fang Muqing's gaze was attracted. Looking at the powerful energy contained within the sailboat, his breathing quickened. "I want this treasure. Name a price." Fang Muqing immediately roared in a low voice. Fang Muqing wants to buy that divine artifact. A divine artifact that looks like a sailboat is very rare. This divine artifact is very special. It definitely has a unique ability, and is more valuable than other divine artifacts of the same level. With Fang Muqing's strength and background, even if he buys it, he would probably go bankrupt, right? When the surrounding people saw this scene, they whispered among themselves. "Wait, this lord, I also want to buy it." At this moment another voice sounded. "Oh." Fang Muqing was slightly stunned, and immediately turned his head to look. "It's Li Muley and the others. Many of our eternal thunderclaps heaven's favored sons have come. Li Mayan, Li Mulong, Meng Muxin, Fang Muqing, and now even Li Muley, Yuan, and Fang Qing have come." Some of the youths were slightly shocked when they saw the youths walking over, and they whispered amongst themselves. These people were all elites of their generation, elites that had suppressed their eastern region. "Why are you all here?" Meng Muxin saw the few of them and frowned slightly. Clearly, the two sides were not on good terms. "I'm here to comfort Sister Muxin. I'm also here to look for some treasures." One of the women looked at Meng Muxin mockingly. "Sister Muxian, your master has fallen. I wonder when your divine kingdom will be completed. Don't tell me you're going to build a divine kingdom randomly." The woman continued to speak to Meng Muxin. Meng Muxin took a deep breath and turned his head to the side. He ignored her. The woman felt bored when she saw Meng Muxin ignoring him. She looked at the wooden sailboat in Wang Xian's hand with a burning gaze. "Sir, may I know how much this divine weapon of yours is for sale?" he asked Wang Xian. "Li Muley Yuan Fangqing, this divine weapon is mine." Fang Muqing looked at them and said with a cold expression, "Shouldn't the competition be fair?" Li Muley looked at Fang Muqing indifferently. "I'm in a bad mood. You guys better not provoke me." Fang Muqing stared at them with a stern expression. Fang Muqing, you're just that lord's in-name disciple now. It's not certain if you can pass the assessment. Especially after your grandfather died. So don't think that you can threaten us. Li Muli stared at him coldly as well. Wang Xian looked at the heavens favorites of the eternal divine leaves who were at loggerheads with him, and felt a little amused. This treasure is fated with you. I'll give it to you. He looked at Meng Muxin slowly, and directly floated the sailboat in his hand to her side. Wang Xian suddenly opened his mouth, and gave the sailboat with 5 wisps of divine fire to Meng Muxin. Everyone around was stunned and looked shocked. What was going on? Chapter 2070. 2070 was unbridled. This you. Not only did everyone around widen their eyes, and revealed an astonished expression, even Meng Muxin was completely dumbfounded at this moment. She looked at the sailboat floating in front of her, and was slightly dazed. What did he mean by this? What are you doing? Meng Muxin looked at the sailboat, which contained a majestic vitality. She took a deep breath, and looked at Wang Xian in puzzlement. Yesterday, when I obtained the treasure, your master died because of this. Although we all have our own destinies, it still bought me some time. Although I have joined the eternal divine leaf to compensate you, I feel sorry for you. Hence, I'll give it to you. Wang Xian said directly to her. Meng Muxin looked like a delicate lady. She didn't say a word even when she was being bullied. She was a typical obedient lady. Such a person would be at a disadvantage if he didn't have a strong strength or background. No matter what, her master died because of the treasure in her hands. Wang Xian didn't even take a glance at a divine weapon with 5 wisps of divine fire. When he obtained this divine weapon, he would either let the 5 elements grind him down, or exchange it for military merits in the Hall of Military Merits. I don't need your pity. When Meng Muxin heard Wang Xian's words, a hint of anger appeared on her small face. Take it. With my strength, I am still qualified to pity you. Wang Xian smiled faintly when he saw her slightly stubborn look. The sailboat was floating in front of her just like that. Meng Muxin's expression changed. Muxin, take it quickly. This is a divine weapon with 5 wisps of divine fire. It is even more precious than a divine kingdom. Li Mayan stared at the divine weapon with burning eyes, and pushed Meng Muxin's body. Alright, I'll take it then. Meng Muxin's expression changed as she grabbed at the sailboat. Muexian, can you sell this divine weapon to me? After I pass the assessment, You are not allowed to sell the things I gave you to others. In addition, I can help you build a divine kingdom, and a divine weapon. This will be your compensation. Fang Muqing's expression changed slightly when he saw Wang Xian giving the sailboat divine weapon directly to Meng Muxin. He said to Meng Muxin. However, Wang Xian interrupted him before he could finish his sentence. Wang Xian's words caused Fang Muqing's expression to change drastically. He stared at Wang Xian with a dark expression. What compensation do you have for me? He clenched his fist slightly and growled in a low voice. You are not pitiful. Wang Xian glanced at him indifferently when he heard his words, and said faintly. Are you provoking me? Fang Muqing raised his head abruptly. His eyes were slightly red as he glared at Wang Xian, and growled with murderous intent. Hiss! When the surrounding people saw this scene, their expressions changed slightly. Even some of the gods frowned when they saw this situation, and did not say anything. Fang Muqing and the rest were the favored ones of this generation. Some of them had backgrounds that ordinary gods would not dare to offend. Bang! However, Fang Muqing's figure was sent flying with a look of shock on everyone's face. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his entire face was extremely pale. The sound of bones breaking could be clearly heard by everyone. If there's a next time, you will directly become a corpse. Wang Xian's cold voice rang out. Upon seeing Wang Xian's attack, everyone in the surroundings revealed a shocked expression. Even Li Mayan and the rest were staring at Wang Xian in shock. He actually dared to injure Fang Muqing directly. This Fang Muqing encountered a person who didn't have any scruples. He provoked at least 7 divine flames before igniting the divine flames. It's normal for him to be severely injured, but it's also not normal. The expressions of some gods changed slightly when they saw this scene. It's forbidden to fight on our eternal divine leaf side. An elder hesitated for a moment before speaking. I know. Wang Xian nodded his head lightly at the elder. Hiss. In front, Li Muli and the rest looked at Wang Xian with some fear. They didn't expect this god to dare to attack Fang Muqing. No matter what, Fang Muqing was the in-name disciple of that lord. He had quite a strong background. Now he had directly injured him. No one in the entire eternal divine leaf dared to be so unscrupulous. The treasure that is fated to be with me has appeared again. Everyone, don't disturb me. Wang Xian ignored the people around him. With a move of his palm, he grabbed towards the ocean tide. What? Another treasure has been found? Everyone around him was slightly stunned. Crash. However, when they saw the energy claw flying towards them with the treasure in its hand, they had a look of seeing a ghost. This damn treasure is fated to be with me too. You wait. When Fang Muqing saw that Wang Xian ignored him completely, his pale face revealed a look of hatred. He stood up and emitted a chilly aura, as he flew towards the mainland with a solemn face. Some people looked at Fang Muqing's expression as their eyes sparkled. As the favored son of the heavens, Fang Muqing would definitely not give up just like that. If the other party was one of the higher-ups of their eternal divine leaves, he might be protected. However, this god had only just joined the eternal divine leaves. Some people felt a chill in their hearts as they looked at the mysterious young man. In just one day, he had obtained 2 divine weapons. What was the reason? As for the claim that he was fated with the treasure, no one believed it. You have to be careful of Fang Muqing. He has a very strong network. Meng Muxin saw Fang Muqing leaving with a gloomy face and reminded Wang Xian. It's all right. Wang Xian nodded at him. You can stay here. If you need any treasures, you can take them away. He continued to speak to Meng Muxin. Sure. Meng Muxin wanted to hesitate, but Li Mayan quickly agreed on her behalf. She touched Meng Muxin and gestured with her eyes. Okay. Meng Muxin nodded and stood quietly at the side. Damn you. You killed my grandfather and made me so embarrassed. I won't let you off. However, at this moment, in a luxurious mansion on the mainland, Fang Muqing growled with an incomparably savage face. The entire mansion was shrouded by his haze. The surrounding handmaidens stood at the side with their heads lowered, shivering. You actually dared to hurt me. Just you wait. He spoke with an incomparably malevolent expression as he entered the room, and heavily closed the door. Hoo-hoo. Standing in the middle of the room, he took a deep breath and took out a mirror. Buzz! Fang Muqing, why are you looking for me? Your grandfather has fallen. Is there anything you can help me with? The mirror trembled slightly. A few seconds later, a middle-aged figure appeared in the mirror. Behind the middle-aged man was a majestic palace. His slightly thin body made him look full of wisdom. Chapter 2071. 2071 killed one. Greetings, senior brother. Fang Muqing saw the thin middle-aged man in the mirror, and immediately called out respectfully. His grandfather had once saved this middle-aged man, and because of this, he was able to talk to him. Just tell me what it is. The thin middle-aged man looked at him and said again. Senior brother, my grandfather died because of a supreme treasure. That treasure is now in the hands of a stranger. Just now he seriously injured me. Fang Muqing bowed slightly, and said with an extremely embarrassed expression. I know about your grandfather, but all of this conforms to the rules of the eternal divine leaf. That person can enter the energy tide, so he should be no weaker than the 7 wisps of divine fire. Your grandfather has done me a favor. I will help you one last time, and help you build a divine kingdom. The thin middle-aged man said to Fang Muqing expressionlessly. Senior brother, he seriously injured me just now. I want revenge. Fang Muqing raised his head, and said through gritted teeth with a cold expression on his face. Revenge? Don't even think about it. As long as he does things according to the rules of the eternal divine leaf, he can't do it. Even I can't do it. The thin middle-aged man said directly to him. I'll prepare some materials for you in the next few days. I'll send the divine kingdom to you in a few days. At the same time, I'll take a look at the biggest energy tide in the past 100,000 years. As he continued to speak, his figure disappeared from the mirror. Senior brother. When Fang Muqing heard the middle-aged man's words, an extremely embarrassed expression appeared on his face, and his body trembled slightly. No, I can't accept this, I can't accept this. Fang Muqing's expression was somewhat malevolent as he roared in a low voice. Yes, he killed a direct descendant of Eternal Shocking Thunder. If I were to tell Eternal Shocking Thunder about this news, the experts of Eternal Shocking Thunder would definitely take revenge. But how can I tell them? I have no way. Fang Muqing's face was filled with malevolence as he roared. He couldn't find any means to take revenge. An extremely strange fellow appeared at the Eternal Divine Leaf. He was able to discover any treasure within the energy tide at the first possible moment. During these 20 hours, that fellow obtained a total of 2 divine artifacts and more than 100 demigod-level treasures. During this period of time, we did not obtain a single treasure. This is the largest energy tide eruption in the past 100,000 years. The number of treasures is over 10 times more than before. At this moment, more than 10 great beings were floating in front of the energy tide on Eternal Thunderclap's side in the northern region. A middle-aged man said with a gloomy face, We can't go on like this. With that guy around, we won't be able to get any more powerful treasures. If we miss this opportunity, who knows how many years we'll have to wait. An old man said indifferently, That guy obtained the Bone Wing True Treasure last time, and his speed is comparable to a peak God Realm expert. It'll be very difficult for us to attack him, unless we set up an ambush in advance. The middle-aged man glanced at the people beside him and said, Then we'll lie in ambush in the ocean tide and wait for him to make a move. As long as we surround him, we can easily kill him. An elder finally made his decision. All right. Everyone nodded in agreement. With a slight movement, they flew downstream. They wanted to enter the energy tide from another place. Instead, they came here and laid in ambush. Fang Muqing didn't know that Eternal Thunderclap had noticed Wang Xian while he was thinking of killing him. At this moment, Wang Xian was still floating quietly in front of the energy tide. From time to time, he would make a move to obtain one treasure after another. I've discovered 6 wisps of Divine Fire Divine Weapon, Heavenly Thunder Pearl. I've discovered 7 wisps of Divine Fire Divine Weapon, Heavenly Thunder Pearl. I've discovered 5 wisps of Divine Fire Divine Weapon, Thunder Hammer. More than 10 minutes later, the treasure-seeking ant suddenly sent one message after another. After receiving the message, Wang Xian was slightly taken aback. A look of surprise appeared on his face. However, when he saw the names of the divine artifacts and the location of the divine artifacts, he was slightly taken aback. What's going on? The divine artifacts didn't come out from the tidal black hole. Instead, they came from downstream. Their positions are still changing. Heavenly Thunder Pearl Thunder Hammer. No, this is the person from Eternal Shocking Thunder, who is located in the ocean tide. What are they doing? Wang Xian's eyes were sparkling as he stared at the center of the ocean tide. Are they waiting for me? I didn't expect this treasure-seeking ant to have such an effect. Each of them has a powerful divine weapon in their hands. They should be top-notch experts from Eternal Shocking Thunder. He smiled and swept his gaze across all the places before he stood there quietly. With his vigilance, Wang Xian continued to fish for treasures from time to time. However, this time, he avoided the dozens of figures hidden in the ocean tides. Although he obtained fewer treasures, it didn't affect him too much. Time passed slowly. Wang Xian stood there quietly for 5 days. During these 5 days, he didn't step into the vicinity of the dozens of figures. This also caused the dozens of experts from Eternal Thunderclap to frown slightly. The other party had not moved for 5 days. They could not stay here forever. They were the higher-ups of eternal shocking thunder here. There were still some matters that needed their attention. In the next few days, Wang Xian sensed that the figures in the energy tide were decreasing one by one. 3 days later, only 5 people were still inside. In these 8 days, Wang Xian obtained 3 more divine weapons. Although the level of the divine weapons was very low, the harvest was absolutely terrifying. As for the demigod-level treasures, there were even more. Another one has left. At this moment, the information sent by the treasure-seeking ant stunned Wang Xian slightly. In the ocean tide, there were only 4 figures who were still there. These 4 figures were respectively 2 thunder hammers with 5 wisps of divine fire, 1 thunder pearl with 5 wisps of divine fire, and 1 thunder cloud with 5 wisps of divine fire. From the initial dozen figures, each of them had 6 or 7 wisps of divine weapons in their hands. Now there were only 4 of them left. These 4 are the weakest among the dozen or so people. Wang Xian's eyes flickered. However, even if they were the weakest, they should at least have the strength of 7 wisps of divine fire to be able to stay in the ocean tide. But if it's just 7 wisps of divine fire, Wang Xian's eyes sparkled. Even if there are 8 wisps of divine fire among them, I'm not afraid. 4 of them can't surround me. I'm not afraid even if there are 9 wisps of divine fire. He mumbled and slowly flew forward. What's going on? Did he encounter another divine weapon? Seeing Wang Xian flying in, Meng Muxin, Li Mayan, and the rest were slightly stunned. Their eyes sparkled. Every time he flew over, he would obtain a divine weapon. Lord Duobao is on the move. Another divine weapon appeared? Definitely. Lord Duobao is too awesome. In the past 8 days, the total number of demigod-level treasures in his hands is equivalent to 4 to 5 divine weapons, right? In the surrounding area, everyone was moved once again when they saw Wang Xian flying into the energy tide. Chapter 2072. 2072 killed 2. A total of 5 divine weapons were obtained in 8 days. All the demigod-level treasures added together were comparable to 4 to 5 divine weapons. Therefore, during this period of time, the people around them called him Lord Treasure. Having many treasures meant having many treasures. Are there more divine weapons? In 8 days, even some of the powerhouses of the eternal divine leaf knew about Wang Xian. A few gods with 8 wisps of divine fire gathered together and stared at Wang Xian's location with sparkling eyes. Speaking of which, they were extremely envious of Wang Xian for obtaining such a treasure. If they had such abilities, wouldn't they be rich? I wonder what divine weapon it is. Everyone stared at the figure as he flew into the energy tide. 4 people. 2 of them are at the level of 7 wisps of divine fire. 2 of them have ignited 8 wisps of divine fire. Wang Xian flew above the energy tide and activated his Yin-Yang 5 elemental dragon eyes. 4 figures appeared in his line of sight. The corner of his mouth curled up slightly. How could the treasures in the energy tide be as valuable as these 4 treasures? As long as he killed all of them, he would obtain at least 4 divine weapons with 5 wisps of divine fire. I can't let them escape. Wang Xian moved his body and jumped directly into the energy tide. 4 people dare to assassinate me? Prepare to die. He stared at the 4 figures hidden under the energy tide with a murderous look on his face. More than a dozen people were hiding in the surroundings. With Wang Xian's strength, he wouldn't dare to barge into this place rashly even if he had the Inoriginator holy wings. But now, he wasn't afraid even if there were 2 gods with 8 wisps of divine fire. Whoosh! As he entered the energy tide, Wang Xian immediately felt that his movements were somewhat hindered, and his attack power was reduced. As the divine wings of the beginning were unfurled, all the resistance disappeared. Wang Xian narrowed his eyes slightly and locked his gaze on a god with 7 wisps of divine fire. Buzz! His body trembled slightly, and Wang Xian's figure instantly appeared about a kilometer away from the god with 7 wisps of divine fire. Damn it, could it be that our luck isn't good? There haven't been any powerful divine weapons to attract him over the past 7 to 8 days? That shouldn't be the case. At this moment, the middle-aged man who was sitting cross-legged in the depth of 100,000 meters in the energy tide was looking around in boredom. At the beginning, all the top-tier experts of Eternal Thunderclap had gathered around and were waiting for their prey. They didn't expect that the other party hadn't come over for 7 or 8 days, so they couldn't stay here forever. Some of them had returned to the Thunder Continent to deal with some matters. However, they still left 4 people here. 2 7-wisp Divine Fire Gods and 2 8-wisp Divine Fire Gods. According to their estimations, the guy who obtained the bone wings might have ignited 7 wisps of Divine Fire, or he might have ignited 8 wisps of Divine Fire. However, even if he had the strength of 8 wisps of Divine Fire, they could still leave him behind. However, at this moment, a terrifying aura completely enveloped him. The middle-aged man's expression changed, and he hurriedly turned his head to look to the left. At this moment, a look of horror appeared on his face. The young man with the bone wings attacked at a terrifying speed. The dragon claw grabbed his body instantly. With a gentle pinch, he killed him instantly. Whoosh! Wuxia did not hesitate at all. His gaze was fixed on the other god with 7 wisps of Divine Fire. The 4 gods were positioned in all directions. They were all within each other's senses. After Wuxia had caught a god by surprise and killed him, he had to act as soon as possible. Otherwise, he would be discovered very quickly. Buzz! The uninitiated holy wings were flapped. The energy tide did not affect Wuxia at all. The speed of a god at the peak of the godly state was not something that the god of 7 wisps of Divine Fire could react to. What? You are When the old man sensed the intention beside him, he turned his head and saw an incomparably huge dragon claw attacking him. His expression changed drastically as he exclaimed. Before he could finish his sentence, he was grabbed by Wuxia. Buzz! The invisible destructive force landed on his body, causing him to die instantly. Not good, something's happening. At this moment, the middle-aged man's voice immediately attracted the attention of the other two elders. When they saw Wuxia's dragon claw killing one of his companions in an instant, a look of shock and anger appeared on their faces. Damn it, he actually dared to launch a sneak attack on us. The expression of an elder with 8 wisps of divine fire changed slightly. When he saw Wuxia attacking him, he immediately raised the thunder hammer in his hand. Crack! 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 A terrifying power of thunder and lightning was formed in the ocean tide. The thunder prison covered an area of 100 kilometers. Wrath of thunder. He let out a furious roar, and streaks of thunder and lightning attacked Wuxia directly. Buzz! Wuxia saw streaks of thunder and lightning attacking him, but his speed was still at its maximum. In front of him, a pattern of yin and yang poles was floating slowly, blocking the attacks of the streaks of thunder and lightning. 8 wisps of divine fire. This guy has the strength of 8 wisps of divine fire. Leishan, come and help him. When the old man saw Wuxia easily blocking his attack, his expression changed slightly. He immediately shouted loudly. Thundercloud chains. The heavenly thunder pearl above the head of the other old man spun. A chain flew out from the heavenly thunder pearl and attacked Wuxia directly. You dare to assassinate us? Let's stay here today. Divine Kingdom, Heavenly Thunder Domain Suppression. I want that treasure of yours. The elder held the thunder hammer in his hand. His face revealed an extremely sinister expression. The Divine Kingdom instantly appeared at the back. The Divine Kingdom, that was over 10 million kilometers, immediately emerged from the ocean tide. He raised the thunder hammer in his hand high. Numerous majestic and terrifying bolts of lightning fell from the Divine Kingdom into the thunder hammer. The entire thunder hammer was like a hammer that could destroy the world. It struck heavily at Wuxia, who was flying over. The sudden appearance of a scene in the ocean tide shocked everyone in the northern and eastern regions. Especially those who were watching Lord Duo Bao capturing the divine weapon from the edge. When they saw the sudden appearance of the Divine Kingdom of Thunder, their expressions changed drastically. Oh no, Duo Bao is under attack. Eternal Shocking Thunder's people are ambushing him. Damn it, those despicable fellows. The expressions of the top-tier Eternal Divine Leaf experts, who had been stunned by this scene, changed slightly. They immediately flew into the sky. Ha ha ha, it's been 8 days. We've finally waited for that fellow. In the end, that treasure still belongs to our Eternal Shocking Thunder. A maniacal laughter came from the opposite side. Immediately, the 7 or 8 Eternal Shocking Thunder experts who had received the news flew directly into the ocean tide. Their faces were filled with an extremely heated expression. It seems like that treasure is fated to be with our eternal thunderclap. A slightly mocking voice continued to ring out. They were returning this sentence to Wuxia. Oh no! When Meng Muxin, Li Mayan, and the rest saw this scene, their expressions changed instantly. Their eyes were fixed on the ocean tide. Oh! A battle has happened. However, at this moment, in front of the Divine Leaf Continent's teleportation array, Feng Muqing stood respectfully in front of the array. A phantom slowly materialized. The moment he appeared, he sensed the power of the ocean tide and slightly narrowed his eyes. Chapter 2073. 2073 killed 3. Senior brother. Feng Muqing stood in front of the skinny middle-aged man and called out respectfully. Come, let's go and see if Eternal Shocking Thunder's group is courting death. The middle-aged man waved his arm, and a wooden raft appeared beneath him. The raft caught Feng Muqing and instantly flew towards the edge of the energy tide. This time Lord Treasure is in danger. I didn't expect Eternal Shocking Thunder to be so despicable, to actually set up an ambush there. They must have used despicable methods when they saw that Lord Treasure had obtained so many treasures and divine artifacts. The middle-aged man led Feng Muqing to the edge, and voices immediately entered his ears. The middle-aged man looked into the energy tide, and turned to look at Feng Muqing when he heard the discussions around him. "Who is that treasure?" he asked. "Senior brother, that treasure is the one who obtained the treasure. I don't know what kind of strange technique he has to be able to accurately see the energy tide. In the past few days, he has obtained quite a few divine artifacts. The rest of the treasures added together are no less than 4 or 5 divine artifacts," Feng Muqing said through gritted teeth. "Oh, is that so?" The middle-aged man raised his eyebrows and revealed a bewildered expression. To have obtained so many divine weapons in the past few days, not to mention Feng Muqing, even he was astonished and a little envious. He has even used his divine kingdom. At this moment, Wang Xian, who was in the energy tide, saw the 8 wisps of divine flames release their domain directly. A cold expression appeared on his face. "I have to give it my all." His gaze swept across the area opposite him. When he saw the mighty figure of the eternal thunderclap flying towards him, his wings trembled violently. Buzz! The speed of the uninitiated holy wings was unleashed to its limit. Wang Xian stared at the thunder hammer that was attacking him, and drew a line in the air. The god of the 8 divine flames would unleash his full strength in the energy tide. It would be greatly weakened by the powerful impact of the ocean tide. The yin and yang patterns on Wang Xian's body rotated slowly. A yin-yang 5 elements om's bowl appeared around him. Crack, 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 crack. The terrifying power of thunder and lightning landed on the yin-yang 5 elements om's bowl, producing a strong sound of collision. "Kiki, break for me!" The god of the 8 wisps of divine fire stared at Wang Xian with a grim expression. He held the thunder hammer with his other hand. Boom, crack, crack, crack. Even more explosive lightning appeared on his thunder hammer. However, at this moment, Wang Xian was only 1,000 meters away from him. "This is the time." Wang Xian, who had also unleashed his full strength, shot out a cold killing intent from his eyes. His figure was flickering with light and darkness. "Go to hell!" The god of 8 wisps of divine fire roared furiously. An incomparably huge bolt of lightning struck towards him. Buzz! Wang Xian flapped his Primalus holy wings violently and burst out at full speed. The lightning struck his body and passed right through him. The next moment, while the 8 wisps of divine fire god were stunned, a blood-red longsword penetrated his head. An aura that was filled with annihilation extended to his entire body. His eyes were wide open and filled with disbelief. Buzz! Wang Xian waved his arm, and his entire divine kingdom was absorbed into the mother nest. "What? Damn it, you actually killed Thunderbolt." At this moment, an extremely furious voice came from behind. When the old man saw his companion being killed so quickly, his eyes were filled with intense fear. Someone of the same level as him was actually killed so easily. His speed is so terrifying. Very soon, the old man stared at the uninitiated holy wings behind Wang Xian, and his expression changed. The bone wings could actually make him move so quickly in the ocean tide. He wasn't affected at all in the ocean tide. With such a disparity, it was no wonder he was able to kill experts of the same level. No wonder he dared to come and attack them. He was relying on the bone wings. This is an ultimate treasure. I must keep him here today. Otherwise, it will be difficult to catch him in the ocean tide. I have to pin him down and wait for the thunder demon and the rest to come over. The old man's mind was filled with thoughts. Crash! In an instant, countless lightning chains flew out from the heavenly lightning bead and wrapped around Wang Xian. Haha, it was worth it to kill 3 of them. Wang Xian saw the lightning chains attacking him. He flapped his incipient saint wings and easily dodged the chains. With his speed, the attacks of the 8 divine flames couldn't even reach him in the ocean tide. He looked up and drilled out of the ocean tide. I got 3 more treasures. Not bad, not bad. After flying out of the ocean, he looked at eternal shocking thunder and the other gods who were flying over. He laughed out loud. Senior brother Thunder Demon, catch him. He attacked us just now. Thunder and the others were killed by him. Just as Wang Xian finished his sentence, Lei Shan's body flew out from the ocean tide. He shouted with an extremely embarrassed expression. What? At this moment, when the gods who were flying over heard Lei Shan's voice, their faces froze slightly and their eyes widened. What was going on? Weren't they the ones who were lying in ambush and preparing to attack that fellow? Why was it that the other party was the one who was attacking them now? Furthermore, there were 3 gods who were killed by him. What was going on? Damn it, could it be that he has discovered our ambush? A middle-aged man's face turned ashen. He immediately roared, "Stop him." 7 to 8 gods with at least 7 wisps of divine fire flew towards Wang Xian. Crash! Wang Xian floated in the air and flapped his bone wings. A mocking smile appeared on his face. Do you think you can stop me with just the 2 of you? He turned around slowly and flew towards the direction of the eternal divine leaf. Thunderspace thunderstorm. The god who was at the center of the 9 wisps of divine fire had an ashen face. He roared and lightning appeared beneath his feet. Boom! The lightning beneath his feet exploded with a loud bang. His speed had reached a terrifying level. With every step he took, the sound of a thunderstorm rang beneath his feet. His speed was extremely terrifying. Wang Xian sensed the speed of the old man and raised his eyebrows slightly. He unleashed the uninitiated holy wings at full speed. Crash! In an instant, the distance between them was easily pulled apart. Behind them, eternal thunderclaps group chased after them with an embarrassed look on their faces. What's going on? It's not eternal thunderclaps people ambushing Lord Duobao, but Lord Duobao attacking them? Hiss, fuck, fuck, fuck. Lord Duobao killed 3 eternal thunderclaps peerless experts. He's simply too powerful. At this moment, the people from Eternal Divine Leaf's side in the eastern region heard the voices coming from the front, and all of them revealed shocked expressions. It wasn't Lord Duobao who had been ambushed, but Lord Duobao who had gone to kill them. No wonder Lord Duobao hasn't flown into the ocean tide in the past few days. He's been waiting for an opportunity. Chapter 2074. 2074 killed 4 forcefully. What a fast speed. He is at the peak of the godly state. Even Master's speed is only so. On a wooden raft in front of the ocean tide of the eastern region, the thin middle-aged man looked at Wang Xian, who was flying towards him. He revealed a look of shock. Such speed was definitely at the peak of the godly state. Speed was also a part of one's strength. Moreover, it was an extremely important part. Is that bone wing that treasure? The middle-aged man asked Fang Muqing beside him with a burning gaze. That's right, senior brother. It's this treasure. It's all because of this bone wing that he can possess such terrifying speed. Fang Muqing said with a burning expression as well. Damn it, you killed 3 of our experts. Don't even think about escaping. In front of the ocean tide, Eternal Thunderclap and the rest of the powerhouses were chasing after Wang Xian. However, Wang Xian had already entered the Eternal Divine Leaf's side. He sensed the group of people chasing after him and raised his eyebrows. Those bastards from Eternal Thunderclap actually dared to enter our territory. Attack! When the powerhouses from Eternal Divine Leaves saw that they dared to enter their territory, their faces turned cold. They immediately went up to them and attacked the Eternal Thunderclap's powerhouses who had stepped into their territory. Damn it, damn you guys. When they saw the Eternal Divine Leaves powerhouses charging over, they looked extremely embarrassed. Your speed is a little slow. Wang Xian stopped and said mockingly to the Eternal Thunderclap's powerhouses. You're courting death. Eternal Shock Lightning and the rest of the experts stopped in their tracks as well. They roared with gloomy faces. A god with 7 wisps of divine fire raised the thunder hammer in his hand furiously and hacked at Wang Xian's position. Clang! Wang Xian waved his arm, and the dragon blood sword in his hand blocked the lightning bolt. How dare you be so arrogant after entering the area of our Eternal Divine Leaves? Thorn of Death bloom! At this moment, a cold voice rang out. In the air, under the attack of the 7 wisps of divine fire god. A green flower of thorns appeared beneath his feet. Before the middle-aged man could react, the flower of thorns bloomed. Voila! A weak sound rang out, and the blooming flower of thorns enveloped the middle-aged man. Everything happened in an instant, and the middle-aged man was directly enveloped by the thorn flower. He didn't even let out a scream. What? It's the thorn of death retreat. The faces of everyone from eternal shocking thunder changed drastically, and the old man in the middle shouted out with a gloomy face. His gaze was fixed on the thin middle-aged man who had attacked, and his expression was incomparably ugly. Thorn of death, it's Li Jinghong. The old man stared at the thin middle-aged man and shouted with a gloomy face. If you want to step into our area, you'll have to pay a price. Li Jinghong, who was on the wooden raft, stared at the middle-aged man and said indifferently, HMPH, a god with 8 wisps of divine fire still dares to be so arrogant. The old man coldly snorted when he heard his words. He turned his head around with an ugly expression and directly left. Regardless of whether it was their side or the other side, there was an array set up by the eternal God Lord, so they didn't dare to go deep. That's Enforcer Li. I didn't expect him to come. This lord actually came here too. I reckon it won't be long before the lords of our eternal divine leaf Grand Elder Council also come. With one move, he directly killed a god of 7 wisps of divine fire, under the eyes of eternal shocking thunder, and the other experts. As expected of that lord's disciple. It's too terrifying. Everyone's gazes were fixed on Li Jinghong on the wooden raft, their faces filled with reverence. Enforcer Li, I didn't expect you to actually come. The top-tier eternal divine leaf experts who were suppressing this place flew towards him and greeted him with smiles on their faces. Hee, this is the largest energy tide in over 100,000 years. I came over out of curiosity to take a look and settle some matters at the same time. Li Jinghong looked at the group of experts and replied with a smile. With Enforcer Li around, we will have a much easier time. A god with 9 wisps of divine fire said with a smile. This little brother has quite the guts. He actually dared to attack the experts of Eternal Thunderclap. Li Jinghong turned his head and looked at Wang Xian, who was not far away. His gaze lingered on the bone wings for a few seconds. They want to ambush me. Naturally, I have to retaliate. Wang Xian also sized up Li Jinghong and said with a smile. Li Jinghong's strength was definitely at the top among the 8 wisps of divine flames. His attack method was very strong. He's just relying on the bone wings. Fang Muqing said coldly when he heard Wang Xian's words. Hee. Wang Xian glanced at him indifferently and ignored him. Instead, he returned to the front of the energy tide and looked ahead quietly. That bone wing is indeed extraordinary. It seems to be able to reach the speed of the peak of the godly state without being affected by the energy tide. However, since this bone wing has been obtained by him, and he has joined our eternal divine leaf, that treasure will belong to him. This is the rule set by the Master God. The elders beside Li Jinghong frowned slightly as they spoke. No one dared to disobey the rule set by the Lord God. And this rule was also to recruit more experts to join their eternal divine leaf. Li Jinghong nodded. Enforcer Li, do you want to go back to the main hall and rest for a while? The elders asked Li Jinghong. No, I'll stay here and take a look. You guys go ahead. Li Jinghong shook his head at them. Okay. The elders nodded. Even if some of them were stronger than Li Jinghong, they still respected him very much. All of this was because Li Jinghong had a master that they needed to revere. Senior brother, let's. Fang Muqing saw his senior brother standing motionlessly on the wooden raft and called out in puzzlement. I want to verify something. Li Jinghong's eyes sparkled with wisdom. He stood there motionlessly. Buzz. In less than 20 minutes, he saw Wang Xian making a move. An energy dragon clawed at the ocean tide. Another treasure found. Fang Muqing looked over with endless envy. Senior brother. He can obtain a treasure in the energy tide every 10 to 20 minutes. Occasionally, he can even obtain a divine weapon. Fang Muqing said with incomparable envy. Just as he said, a treasure at the level of a demigod was clawed over by the energy claw. How did he sense it? The energy within the ocean tide was surging. It was impossible for a demigod treasure to sense it. He could only rely on his eyes. However, I didn't sense any changes in his pupils. If it wasn't his eyes, then what could it be? It could be the bone wings hidden behind his back. He muttered in his heart as a hint of greed flashed in his eyes. Chapter 2075. 2075 killed 5. Li Jinghong didn't care about ordinary treasures at all. However, a treasure that could allow a god who had ignited 8 wisps of divine fire to burst forth with the speed of a peak godly state was something he coveted. Although it was scorching hot, he knew that some rules couldn't be touched. However, if such a treasure could clearly sense all the treasures within the energy tide, it would be different. Li Jinghong stood there and quietly pondered. Time slowly passed. During this time, he saw the young man, who was known as a treasure hunter, attack time and time again. Each time he attacked, he would obtain a treasure. Although these treasures were not in his eyes, if there were more of them, then it would be different. If he stayed in this energy tide for a few decades, wouldn't the treasures he obtained be comparable to a few dozen years of divine artifacts? Or even a few hundred divine artifacts? One divine weapon was enough to buy a planet. A divine weapon with 2 wisps of divine fire. 2 hours later, another piece of information appeared in Wang Xian's mind. When he saw this piece of information, a smile appeared on his face. Another divine weapon. Whoosh! His body moved and flew directly into the energy tide. Lord Duobao has made his move again. If he doesn't make his move, then so be it. Once he makes his move, he will either be using a divine weapon or killing the god of eternal thunderclap. When some people nearby saw Wang Xian flying over, their eyes were filled with burning passion. That fellow is making his move again. At the opposite location, the fact that someone from the eternal divine leaf could clearly lock onto the treasures in the energy tide had already been known by everyone. When they saw Wang Xian flying over, they stared at him with an awkward expression. This time no one attacked Wang Xian. After witnessing Wang Xian's terrifying speed, Eternal Thunderclap completely dismissed the idea of ambushing him. Now that they saw him flying towards the center of the energy tide, it must be due to the existence of the treasure. Naturally, his expression did not look good. Splash! At this moment, many people saw Wang Xian flying out with the water spirit pearl in his hand. The water spirit pearl emitted an extremely powerful divine glow. On it, there was a spiritual creature that looked like a fish that was wandering around. Divine weapon. A divine level treasure. Upon seeing this scene, everyone was slightly shocked. As expected, it's another divine weapon. If Lord Treasure were to stay in this energy tide for a few more years, I reckon that no one in the entire eternal divine leaf would be richer than him. It's too powerful. If I have this kind of energy, I will keep the treasures that I can use. I will exchange the rest of the treasures for military merits. I will get Lord Divine Leaf to guide me in my cultivation. When the people from the eternal divine leaf saw the divine weapon in Wang Xian's hand, they were all burning hot. Li Jinghong, who was standing on the wooden raft, trembled. His breathing was a little hurried. I didn't use any eye bloodline techniques. With the strength of 8 wisps of divine fire, I definitely couldn't sense the treasure in the depths of the energy tide. It must be because of that bone wing. That bone wing itself came from the energy tide. It's very likely that it can sense the existence of some treasures. Li Jinghong kept pondering in his heart. This speed of obtaining treasures was too terrifying. If he stayed here for a few decades and gave all the treasures he obtained to God Lord Shinai, God Lord Shinai would probably be moved to accept him as his personal disciple. There was also a possibility that the Divine Leaf God Lord would take the bone wings for himself. Not to mention the speed that the bone wings can increase. Just this ability alone would tempt anyone. It's no wonder that Feng Muqing is so angry. His eyes sparkled as he looked at Feng Muqing. What did you say last time that he injured you? Li Jinghong asked him indifferently. Senior brother, I didn't say anything. At that time, I said that I wanted to buy that bone wing, but he wasn't willing. Later, some of my words angered him and made him directly attack. He didn't have any scruples and didn't give me any face at all. Fang Muqing replied with an embarrassed expression. Do you know where he comes from in his background? Li Jinghong continued to ask. I checked, but there's no information. I only know that a disciple said that he flew over from the northern region. However, he dared to kill Eternal Shocking Thunder's direct disciple and expert. He can't be someone from Eternal Shocking Thunder. Maybe he has some enmity with Eternal Shocking Thunder, Fang Muqing said with a gloomy face. He also wanted to take revenge, but there was nothing he could do. A god with no background? That would be easier. Li Jinghong hesitated as he pondered over the situation. Just as he was thinking, he sensed that the young man had obtained another treasure. Let's go back, Li Jinghong said to Fang Muqing, and the wooden raft flew toward a mansion on the Divine Leaf continent. Senior brother, drink some tea. When they arrived at the manor, Fang Muqing respectfully poured a cup of tea and placed it on the table. Bang bang. Li Jinghong knocked on the table without saying anything, and his face revealed a thoughtful expression. Seeing that his senior brother didn't say anything, Fang Muqing quietly stood to the side. Tomorrow, you go and provoke that young man. It's best if you can make him attack you. Li Jinghong suddenly said to Fang Muqing. Oh, senior brother, anger. Senior brother, you mean to anger that young man? Senior brother, do you want it? Fang Muqing's body shook, and his face revealed an extremely excited expression. After I get the bone wings, I will help you build a powerful divine kingdom and support you to become Master's personal disciple. How about it, junior brother? Li Jinghong looked at him and said indifferently. Build a powerful divine kingdom. Support him to become Master's personal disciple with all his might. Junior brother. Fang Muqing revealed an extremely excited expression when he heard his senior brother's words. Even though he was the proud son of heaven, who suppressed a region with the eternal divine leaves, he still couldn't suppress the excitement in his heart. In the past, senior brother never called him junior brother, because he was only an unnamed disciple after all. Whether he could pass the test or not was uncertain. But now, with senior brother's full support, I can definitely become a personal disciple. Fang Muqing's heart was burning with passion, and his mind was full of thoughts. Senior brother, I know what to do, Fang Muqing said loudly with a face full of excitement. Such a treasure cannot fall into the hands of outsiders. Li Jinghong's eyes were shining. You go over first tomorrow. I'll watch over here. As an eternal divine leaf law enforcer, he knew that his actions had broken the rules. Breaking the rules, even if he was that Lord Palm Technique's disciple, he still had to be punished. He couldn't let himself appear suspicious. If you don't succeed, you know what to do, Li Jinghong said to him. Don't worry, senior brother. Many people know about my conflict with him last time. I know what to do. Fang Muqing nodded heavily. He knew what he should do, and what method his senior brother was going to use. Chapter 2076. 2076 killed 6. Another treasure. I wonder how many treasures Lord Duobao has obtained. Yesterday, Lord Duobao killed 3 Eternal Thunderclap experts, including 2 7-strand Divine Flames and 1 8-strand Divine Flames. Now Lord Duobao's military merits have reached at least 7 leaves, which is higher than most of our Lord's military merits. If he takes out all the treasures in his hands, he should be able to reach 8 leaves of military merits, right? In front of the energy tide, some people looked at the figure at the edge and whispered. In yesterday's battle, he killed 3 Eternal Thunderclap experts, and his reputation spread across the entire Divine Leaf continent. Towards this Lord Duobao who suddenly appeared, they were filled with respect and admiration. In the future, if this Lord Duobao completely turns his military achievements into his personal honor, the Lord God Lord will definitely give him a very high position. Perhaps in a few hundred years or a few thousand years, he will be able to enter the core of our eternal divine leaf. After all, The bone wings on his body and the treasures in his hands are too abnormal. In front of the divine leaf continent, Fang Muqing flew towards the front of the energy tide with an expressionless face. He looked at the figure who was standing there arrogantly. Jealousy and anger flashed in his eyes. People were talking about him. He turned around, his eyes shining. Master Treasure has the ability to explore treasures in the energy tide. Maybe he will become the highest commander of this area in the future. More people were talking. Hearing them, his face became more and more embarrassed. Just as everyone had expected, all of this was very possible. Although he was the most outstanding heaven's favorite of eternal divine leaf's generation, he hadn't ignited the divine fire yet. In front of those 7 or 8 wisps of divine fire, he was still a weak junior. In eternal divine leaf, the value of a peerless heaven's favorite was at most comparable to 5 or 6 wisps of divine fire. There was still a big gap between his status and that of a true expert. That figure could already be said to be a top-tier expert in the eternal divine leaf. In addition to his current military merits and treasures, his future was limitless. If it weren't for you, my grandfather wouldn't have fallen and made me so embarrassed. I may not be able to do anything to you, but that doesn't mean that other people can't. Very soon, you will feel regret and regret. Fang Muqing mumbled. He kept his expression and walked towards the figure. This is a wood elemental treasure. The treasure you used to create your divine kingdom is almost complete. At the edge of the energy tide, Wang Xian took a look at the treasure he had just obtained and passed it to Meng Muxin. Thank you. Meng Muxin nodded heavily and revealed a smile. Over the past few days, the treasures given to him by this young man in front of her were enough for her to build a powerful divine kingdom. In addition to the 5 wisps of divine fire on the sailboat, even his former master wouldn't be able to come up with such a treasure. After all, many gods with 7 or 8 wisps of divine fire didn't have such a divine weapon. Wang Xian shook his head lightly. He didn't like to owe people favors. He had repaid this favor. You have given Meng Muxin so much compensation. Don't you want to give me some compensation too? Suddenly a voice sounded. Fang Muqing walked over slowly. He stared at Wang Xian and asked faintly. "Ha!" Meng Muxin, Li Mayan, and the rest looked over and revealed a stunned expression. This Fang Muqing was a little thick-skinned and unwilling. However, it made sense when they thought about it. Fang Muqing was naturally unwilling to accept this matter. "Get out of my sight." When Wang Xian heard these words and saw Fang Muqing, who was walking 10 meters in front of him, he shouted coldly with an expressionless face. Some people were worthy of sympathy, while others were not. "Wang Xian, you should know that my grandfather died because of that treasure on you. You gave Meng Muxin so many treasures as compensation. Shouldn't you give me some compensation?" Fang Muqing said with a slightly ferocious expression. "Hehe, you are not worthy." Wang Xian said to him faintly, "I will give you 3 seconds to get out of my sight. What if I don't get out? You will obtain the bone wings. Through the powerful ability of the bone wings, you will be able to explore the treasures in the energy tide. Now that you have obtained so many divine weapons, shouldn't you compensate me?" Fang Muqing stood there without any fear as he stared at Wang Xian with bloodshot eyes. "Ha!" Wang Xian was slightly stunned when he heard his words. A cold smile appeared on his face. He didn't expect Fang Muqing to have such thoughts. Using the uninitiated holy wings to search for treasures. 3 seconds are up. Wang Xian waved his arm, and a powerful force landed on Fang Muqing's body. In an instant, Fang Muqing was like an ant in front of him. He flew to the side and spat out blood. Wang Xian ignored him completely. Although it was forbidden to make a move here, the group of top-notch experts would not say anything even if Wang Xian made a move. It was just a lesson from an elder to a junior. What is going on? Did Fang Muqing offend Lord Duobao again? He was injured during the previous clash with Lord Duobao. This time, he actually dared to come again. Even though he is an extremely powerful god's favored son, he cannot be compared to the 8 wisps of divine fire god. Some of the people around were slightly shocked when they saw Wang Xian attacking Fang Muqing again. Let me guess correctly. Fang Muqing felt the intense pain in his body. A ferocious look appeared on his face as he shouted sternly. Just you wait. 2 attacks and 2 humiliations. In the future, I, Fang Muqing, will definitely not let you off. When I become the disciple of Master Palm Technique, you should be prepared for my revenge. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he growled at Wang Xian. This Fang Muqing. When Meng Muxin and the rest saw Fang Muqing's expression, they frowned slightly. Are you threatening me? When Wang Xian saw Fang Muqing's undisguised threat, a hint of killing intent flashed across his face. It had been a long time since anyone dared to threaten him. Anyone who threatened me would have to pay a heavy price. Wang Xian slowly raised his palm, and a 5-colored dragon claw instantly condensed. I warned you last time. If you don't want to die, don't provoke me. Since you're courting death, I'll grant your wish. Wang Xian's face was cold as he clawed at Fang Muqing with his 5 elemental dragon claws. You, what are you doing? In an instant, Fang Muqing felt the threat of death enveloping him. His face was filled with fear. He stared at Wang Xian in disbelief. Is he trying to kill me? Was he seeking his own death? No, I don't want to die. I just want to anger him, senior. Fang Muqing roared in his heart. Bang! However, they were too close to each other. The 5 elemental dragon claws landed on his body in an instant. Death was imminent. Chapter 2077. 2077 had turned the sky upside down. No! At the moment before his death, Fang Muqing let out a scream of despair, his face filled with terror and disbelief. His voice was filled with regret. He only wanted to infuriate him, so that he could trigger the rules of the eternal divine leaf. However, he had never expected that the other party would actually dare to kill him without the slightest bit of hesitation. At this moment, not only Fang Muqing, but everyone around was also looking at this scene in shock. Master Wang, you can't do that. Meng Muxin and Li Mayan had the same look of shock on their faces. They immediately shouted at Wang Xian. To kill someone in the territory of the eternal divine leaves, and to kill one of the top heaven's favorites of the eternal divine leaves. Even the upper echelons of the eternal divine leaves would have to be punished. Furthermore, Fang Muqing was the in-name disciple of that lord. Although he was only an in-name disciple, many people did not dare to provoke him. That lord was a spellcaster. Buzz! Wang Xian waved his arm and stored Fang Muqing's corpse into the mother nest. Oh my god, Lord Duobao actually killed Fang Muqing in one move. Hiss! Lord Duobao actually killed Fang Muqing. This is breaking the heavens. It's over. Even if Lord Duobao has many military merits, it's useless. Something big has happened. Fang Muqing is a favored son of the heavens. No matter what his identity is, Lord Duobao killing him without any scruples is the greatest provocation to the eternal divine leaf. This time, no one can save him. Everyone in the surroundings was in an uproar as they watched this scene in astonishment. Due to Wang Xian's action yesterday, there were at least tens of millions of people who were paying attention to him. Everyone knew that something big had happened. A shocked and unbelievable voice entered Wang Xian's ears. There was no change in his expression. He naturally knew that killing a favored son of heaven of the eternal divine leaf was a big deal. Even if he had extraordinary strength, he would still be punished by the eternal divine leaf. However, Fang Muqing was courting death and had a strong killing intent toward him. Naturally, Wang Xian would not let him off either. Since he had the intention to kill, he would kill him. Let those 2 girls settle things with their father. It's time to reveal my identity. Wang Xian smiled faintly and took out the communication device from the mother nest. Wang Xian had not contacted the 2 girls for the past 10 days. He could not help but grumble. This Lord Duobao is still smiling? He can still smile. When everyone saw Wang Xian standing there with a hint of a smile on his face, their faces froze and they were dumbfounded. He still dared to smile. He actually dared to kill Fang Muqing directly. However, at this moment Li Jinghong, who had been hovering above the residents on the Divine Leaf continent, was slightly shocked when he saw Feng Muqing being killed directly. His face was filled with shock. However, the shock on his face soon turned into a smile. The heavens are really helping me. This fellow actually dared to kill Feng Muqing directly. I can punish him directly. Furthermore, Feng Muqing is already dead. There won't be any problems. The heavens are really helping me. Ha ha ha. He couldn't help but laugh. Following that, he moved. A wooden raft appeared beneath him, and he flew towards Wang Xian. You dare to kill an innocent heaven's favorite disciple in the eternal divine leaf, the unnamed disciple of the Master of Laws. This crime deserves to be executed. Execution order. If you encounter a vicious person, kill him immediately. Mobilize all the experts in the eternal divine leaf. All the experts in the divine leaf continent, get ready to kill that treasure. He stood on the wooden raft and roared with dignity. His voice spread to every corner of the divine leaf continent, and everyone could hear him clearly. Thorns of death bloom. As soon as he finished speaking, he shouted again, his face full of excited killing intent. If he killed him, he would be able to obtain that treasure. After obtaining that treasure, he would receive a terrifying reward. That treasure is mine. He was extremely excited. At this moment, Wang Xian, who was floating in the sky and had just taken out his communication device, immediately sensed a thorn flower beneath his feet when his voice rang out. Upon seeing this flower, he immediately placed his communication device into the mother nest and stomped lightly on it. Buzz! An aura of annihilation directly covered the thorny flower below. Before the death thorny flower bloomed, it began to wither slowly. What happened? Feng Muqing was killed by that Wang Xian. Enforcer Li has already issued an order to execute him. He actually dared to kill a heaven's favorite son of our eternal divine leaves. Why is this? Is he betraying the eternal divine leaves? At this moment, voices came from every corner. A vast figure quickly flew over, his gaze locked onto this area. Duobao, how much enmity does Feng Muqing have with you to actually make you kill him? Such a cruel person. Accept the punishment of U.S. law enforcers. Li Jinghong saw that his thorn of death was blocked, and he slightly frowned. However, he did not stop as he shouted sternly. He knew that he possessed the bone wings with a terrifying speed. He had to tie down his opponent, or his opponent might escape. What a quick reaction. He didn't even give me the time to inform the two girls? Wang Xian frowned slightly when he saw that he had killed Feng Muqing a moment ago, and that Li Jifa had appeared the next moment. That's not right. Why is there excitement and cold killing intent in his eyes? He looked at Li Jinghong, and a hint of doubt appeared on his face once again. There was something wrong with the other party's reaction and gaze. Planet of Thorns bind. Li Jinghong stared at Wang Xian with a burning gaze. A wooden staff appeared in his hand. He waved his arm, and a planet-sized thorn, that was about 400 to 500 kilometers in diameter, covered Wang Xian. Countless thorns were like terrifying tentacles, continuously entangling Wang Xian. This won't do. I have to hide first and inform the two girls. Wang Xian's gaze swept across the terrifying entanglement of thorns as he swept his gaze forward. Other than this enforcer Li, there were 7 to 8 gods with the lowest 8 wisps of divine fire flying towards him. He frowned and looked at the energy tied at the side before flying straight in. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Countless thorns fell from the sky and started to entangle with him. Crash. The sound of bones could be heard coming from Wang Xian's back. The uninitiated holy wings appeared on his back. He held the dragon blood sword in his hand and slashed at the thorns. Poof. Wang Xian, who was controlling the uninitiated holy wings, burst out several times his speed. He avoided the entanglement of the thorns and entered the energy tide. Without any hesitation, he flew straight into the depths of the ocean tide. Damn it, such fast speed. However, don't even think about escaping this time. Li Jinghong looked a little embarrassed when he saw this scene. With a move of his palm, a black thorn appeared in his hand. He followed closely behind and entered the ocean tide. Chapter 2078. 2078 Divine Leaf Enforcers versus Divine Leaf Guardians? Go. This is bad. What is Lord Wang trying to do? He is trying to run away. Is he trying to make an enemy out of the entire Eternal Divine Leaf? Seeing that Wang Xian was blocking the attack of Enforcers Li, Meng Muxin, Li Mayan, and the rest had an ugly expression on their faces. Killing a Heaven's Pride disciple and disobeying the Enforcers was already making an enemy out of the entire Eternal Divine Leaf. Next, he'll be hunted by the entire Leaf of Eternity. It is terrible to anger a God-level force. Lord Wang doesn't look like a bad guy. Now, Meng Muxin had a good impression of Wang Xian, although his master's accidental fall was due to the treasure. But she also knows that the enemy is the Eternal Thunder, not blame Wang Xian. Wang Xian had no need to compensate her with so many treasures. However, he did it. This meant that he was not a bad person. Although he is not a bad person, he is a little extreme. It's over. Li Mayan said with an embarrassed expression. When everyone around saw this scene, their expressions changed. They never expected that Lord Duo Bao, who had been in the limelight for the past few days and killed a top-notch Eternal Thunderclap expert, would kill Feng Muqing without any hesitation. With Lord Duo Bao's strength and ability, he would have a bright future in the Eternal Divine Leaf. Enter the energy tide to help Li Enforcer. If the other party resists, kill him immediately. The top-notch experts around him immediately followed closely behind and chased after him. He didn't have any effect in the ocean tide. As expected, it's all thanks to that bone wing. When Li Jinghong entered the ocean tide, he saw that Wang Xian had already flown over 100 kilometers away. His expression changed slightly. Black Forest Lockwood, go! Li Jinghong gritted his teeth. He looked at the black thorn in his hand with some heartache and flew directly toward Wang Xian. This Black Forest Lockwood was not a divine artifact, but a branch on a divine tree. Furthermore, this branch was a one-time use. Using it once would deplete all of its energy and cause it to wither. Buzz! The black thorn streaked across the ocean tide and headed straight for Wang Xian's body. The black thorn was extremely strange. Even in the ocean tide, its speed was still extremely terrifying. Since I've made my move, you can stay here. He growled with a gloomy face. Huh? What is this? What a fast speed. Wang Xian, who was flying forward, sensed the thorns behind him. His expression changed slightly. He was initially surprised. Even if he was at the peak of the godly state, he wouldn't be able to stop him if he entered the ocean tide with the help of the Primalist Saint Wings. When he sensed the black thorns, a hint of surprise appeared on his face. Clang! The dragon blood sword in his hand slashed directly at the Black Forest Lockwood behind him. Bang! 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 However, what surprised Wang Xian was that the moment the black thorns touched the dragon blood sword, they immediately wrapped themselves around it and wrapped themselves around his arm. Boom! Wang Xian's body trembled. The destructive energy charged toward the black thorns. Bang! Bang! However, when the 5 elements annihilation force landed on it, it only slowed down the speed of the Black Forest Lockwood. It was still completely wrapped around Wang Xian's arm. Wang Xian frowned slightly. When he saw Li Jinghong holding on to the other end of the black thorn, his expression turned ugly. It seems like I shouldn't underestimate the gods in the world. Wang Xian's brows were tightly knitted. He hadn't been in the boundless galaxy for long. There must be many treasures and incredible existences in such a huge galaxy. This dark thorn was an extremely strange and powerful thing. Kill him! Wang Xian saw that his arm was entangled. The dark thorn had already entered his arm and merged with his arm. Furthermore, some of the thorns had entered his chest strangely. If he were to cut off the position of his arm and chest, he would suffer a lot of damage and lose a large amount of dragon energy. Faced with this law enforcer Li, who was filled with a strange killing intent towards him, Wang Xian did not have any scruples. Crash!